tanking, and I can just tell you, as you see from this board right here, we are all stages replenish. So all tanks on board the SLS, the 2 liquid hydrogen, lower stage and upper stage, and 2 liquid oxygen, lower stage and upper stage, are at 100%, and that's exactly where we want to be. This kicked off at 7:30 this morning with a go for cryo load, and here we are roughly about 5 hours later, and we're fully tanked and now in replenish. The amount of propellant on board, roughly 733,000 gallons. That's about an Olympic-sized pool and a half. Huge amount of propellant. It's all flowed in there. The great news there, no leaks, no issues, and we're looking good at this point. So let's talk weather now. The weather, while it is favorable overall, it's not totally clean, and that was hinted at earlier when we talked about the storms. There is, of course, some onshore flow. Currently, our overall attempt percentage stands at 80% chance of acceptable weather conditions at the time of liftoff, which is going to be within our launch window. That's tonight from 6:24 p.m. Eastern Time until 8:24 p.m. Eastern Time. Winds are good. The lightning risk is low. But scattered showers still remain possible around the Cape and including near the pad. So the expectation is that there'll be some more active weather coming our way, but we're expecting it to push to the west. So the watch item is really any isolated shower that could briefly move through the area and trigger a constraint, especially for flight through precipitation. Well, you're looking now inside the astronaut suit-up room, and of course we got the 4 astronauts there. They talked to Charlie Blackwell-Thompson today, and you know, everything looks good there. We're tracking one minor NC issue at this point. We'll talk, it's a non-conformance. We'll talk about that a little bit later in our next hit, but for now, again, looking good. And of course, our administrator for NASA is here in the firing room. He checked in with the launch director, chatted with her for several minutes, and he's here in the firing room, which is a good positive sign, of course, for the day. That's it for the firing room. We'll send it back now to Megan and Nicole.
Daryl, thank you so much. Yeah, let's get back into the suit-up room here, where we now have a shot of all 4 astronauts, and it appears all of them are undergoing their suit leak checks. Can you talk to us about what that is, Nicole?
Sure, yeah, you can see, you know, as the suit expands, that we're going to pressurize those suits, so in the case that we need it, if we lose pressure in the capsule, those suits will protect the astronauts and keep them pressurized and keep them survivable. So these guys are going to hold their breath for about 10 seconds. You know, any movement in the suit could cause changes in the pressure, and so we want to get a really nice, precise, accurate measurement on the leak check. And so they'll hold their breath. You know, even just their heartbeat could potentially make some differences in those super sensitive sensors there. So you can see the red and blue valves there, the air in and air out, and it looks like Victor just had a good leak check.
Yeah, and actually they do 3 leak checks, again, just to get an average reading to say, hey, you know, we have confidence that these suits are holding the right pressure. As Nicole said, that tube that's going in, that's putting air into their suits, and then there was that gold instrument that you saw on their other side. That's how they can control how much pressure is being released in order to do these checks.
Yep, and they will do the leak checks here in the suit room, and then they'll do more actually in the capsule as well. They'll do another leak check. So we're going to make sure the suits are ready to go before we even step out the door, and then we'll check them with the entire system on the capsule once they get out to the rocket.
And you might also notice that some of the astronauts, while they're doing their suit leak checks, you might have seen Victor gave an okay sign. You might also see a thumbs up, and that's because concurrently, while they're doing these suit leak checks, they're also doing comm checks.
Yes, yeah, we talked about the comm cap earlier and the umbilical and how they plug in. So yeah, they're going to test the comm, they're going to test the suit, make sure everything. They're actually probably testing the cooling system as well right now. You know, they're going to plug into the portable cooling system and make sure that all of that is working. So like I said, we want to make sure that we've got 4 healthy suits before we go out.
Yeah, this suit, 3 layers, so obviously it can get hot.
Yes.
So one of the layers is a cooling undergarment, and basically they flow cold liquid through that undergarment to keep the astronauts cool and comfortable before liftoff today.
Yeah, it's like a onesie with a bunch of tubes running around it, and the water flows through there to cool you down.
All right, lots of information to share with you all today. If you have any questions, we'd love to hear from you. All you have to do is send your questions our way by tagging @NASA Artemis, and we'll try to answer as many of your questions live. And we'll also have some questions for you throughout the broadcast, so we hope you can participate in those opportunities as well. Okay, as we continue to be inside the suit-up room here, why don't we learn a little bit about each of our crew members? Right now, we are looking at pilot Victor Glover, but hopefully we can get a shot here of our commander, Reid Wiseman. Now, Reid Wiseman is a Baltimore native. He's been in space once before as flight engineer for Expedition 41 aboard the International Space Station from May through November 2014. During the 165-day mission, Reid and his crewmates completed, get this, more than 300 science experiments in areas like human physiology, medicine, physical science, earth science, and also astrophysics. They actually set a milestone for station science by completing a record 82 research hours in a single week. He also served as chief of NASA's astronaut office from December 2020 to November 2022, and Reid has 2 daughters.
Yeah, I love, Reid is such a great leader. He was the chief of the astronaut office when they hired our class of astronauts. And so, I think I have to publicly thank him for my job here today. But yeah, he's a family man. He's a good leader. And he's a great pick for the commander of this mission.
Yeah, I think, in talking through some of his other accomplishments, obviously he has leadership qualities that makes him prepared for commander of Artemis II.
Yes, he does. He's a well-experienced naval officer and now NASA astronaut.
And so now here we are, pilot Victor Glover. NASA selected the California native as an astronaut in 2013. At the time, he was actually serving as a legislative fellow in the United States Senate. His first trip to space was in November 2020 when he launched as pilot of NASA's SpaceX Crew 1 mission. That was the first operational mission of NASA's Commercial Crew Program, which resumed launching American rockets from American soil to the International Space Station at the end of the shuttle program. Victor is a U.S. Navy captain and naval aviator who served as a test pilot, racking up more than 3,500 flight hours in more than 40 different aircraft. He and his wife, Deanna, have 4 children.
Yeah, 4 children, a lot of energy, but that checks, right? Because when I think of Victor Glover, I think of a lot of energy, smart guy who's always excited and ready to go. And there you go, he's smiling in the suit room this morning.
Oh yeah, he's a great guy. All of them are. This whole entire crew, they're just a good group of human beings, of leaders, of friends, family. I have never heard anybody say anything bad about any of these 4. They're all so well accomplished, and they're also deserving of this opportunity to return to the moon.
Yeah, and they're also humble, right? They're just standard humans going to the moon, but you would never know that when you talk to them in a normal conversation.
And so it looks like Christina here has completed her suit leak checks as well, her communication checks too.
Yep, they've already got her gloves off. They're getting ready to kind of hang out and relax a little bit, I think, before they walk out.
She is a mission specialist for this mission, native of Grand Rapids, Michigan. Was selected to the Astronaut Corps in 2013, so actually same class as Victor. She served as flight engineer on the International Space Station from March 2019 to February 2020. And during that time, Cook set a record for the longest single space flight by a woman with a total of 328 consecutive days in space. She also participated in the first ever all-female spacewalk. And before becoming an astronaut, Christina helped build space science instruments and led scientific field work in some of the most remote environments on the planet. Her hobbies include surfing, rock climbing, community service, yoga, travel, and photography. Again, so much. When does she find the time?
That's a great question. One of the things I love about Christina is that she's broken records and she's achieved all these milestones. But one of the things that she talks about is, she just wants people to set goals and go work hard and do something that's meaningful to you. And she really hopes that her records are broken as soon as possible. She does it for her family, and she'll talk about all of her nieces and nephews quite a bit. So just, again, another example of just a humble human who's got a great support system in her family and excited for the mission.
Yeah, she's always saying that she just wants the opportunity to push people farther, to push humanity farther, see what we can accomplish together. So, yeah. Again, all four of them say that. They're really in tune on what they think or what they feel like their role is in this mission.
Yeah, I think their legacy is going to be, providing the shoulders for others to climb on.
And last but not least, first-time flyer, Canadian Space Agency astronaut Jeremy Hansen will fly to the moon as a mission specialist on the Artemis II mission. The London, Ontario native was selected as an astronaut in 2009. After that, he worked as Capcom at NASA's Mission Control Center in Houston. Capcom stands for Capsule Communicator, and that's the sole direct voice communicating with astronauts in space. He also participated in training exercises such as living on the ocean floor off the coast of Florida to simulate deep space exploration for 7 days. In 2017, he became the first Canadian to lead a NASA astronaut class. He also enjoys getting out on a sailboat, rock climbing, and mountain biking. Jeremy and his wife, Catherine, have 3 children, and he actually got to hang out with them over the weekend. So the crew arrived here for launch at Kennedy Space Center on Friday, and then their family members arrived Saturday.
Yes, yeah. As long as their family can quarantine with them, then they will stay, quarantined in Houston, and then they all fly down to Kennedy Space Center, and then you get to spend the last few days with your close family and friends. We actually do a behind-the-glass visit with some of those other maybe extended family members that couldn't quarantine with you. But it's a quaint time here once you get to Kennedy Space Center.
A great sign here, all 4 astronauts have removed their helmets, and that indicates again that all 4 have completed suit leak checks. And so, Nicole, what they're doing now is they have these pockets on their forearms. That's just somewhere where they can put personal items that they might want, right?
Yeah, just kind of stowage pockets. There's always something that you might need or want while you're in the capsule, and then also last-minute personal items if you want to put a couple things in there. So everybody kind of has their own unique stash in their pockets.
And then another pocket has emergency equipment that they might need, right? Like a signaling mirror, things like that.
Right, yeah, the suit is basically all in one. It's got the oxygen bottles there on their right legs. You'll see in a different shot, they've got pockets with survival gear in it, and that is to keep them safe. So if they had to egress the capsule, either from the launch pad or from the water, then they will have all of the survival gear with them. They'll have about 10 minutes of oxygen as well from that bottle so that they can get to safety quickly and safely.
We are now 5 hours, 3 minutes and counting from the opening of our 2-hour launch window, and we have our first questions from social media. Question here from X. So to be clear, this is not a mission to land, but to orbit the moon. Thank you, and thank our astronauts. Nicole.
Yeah, this is a great question. I think it's important to highlight the mission of Artemis II, where we are going to go around the moon. We're going to see the far side of the moon. We're going to see parts of the far side of the moon that human eyes have never seen before. It's very similar to the Apollo 8 mission, right? We're also potentially going to be able to see the landing sites for the future Artemis missions and kind of provide the overall context of those landing sites amongst the entire moon site there. So it's an exciting mission. We'll get to learn a ton about there's so much science that's going to be on this mission as well, right? Where they're going to do some science experiments on humans, learn about the stress of the environment, and we're going to learn about the radiation environment. We're going to learn about the suits as well. We've got some technology demonstrations that are going to happen. So there's a lot going on this mission as we fly around the moon and come back.
Mm-hmm. We always say it's about increments, right? Like we're making that next giant leap to Mars, but in order to do that safely and to do that thoroughly, incremental steps.
Exactly. And, like we said, this is the first time that we've put crew on this rocket. And so actually before we even head to the moon, right, we're going to stay close to the Earth, and we're going to check out all of the systems on Orion, make sure that it can handle 4 humans, make sure it can handle people sleeping, people exercising, all of the environmental control systems are working. So we want to make sure that the capsule is safe for the crew before we send them, almost 250,000 miles away.
Yeah, that was a great question. And we actually have another one that we'll pull up on screen here. Another question from X. How long will it take them to reach the moon, and how long will the entire mission last?
Another great question, right? So they're going to do a couple orbits around the Earth. They'll do a perigee and an apogee raise burn. What that means is that they're going to accelerate to get further away from the Earth, and they'll get into a really highly elliptical orbit first. And then once they get into the translunar injection, so they're actually on a free return trajectory, which means we're going to accelerate them, and then they're going to escape Earth's gravity, and then just based on orbital mechanics, they'll be able to come home without having to do another burn or acceleration. So it'll take about 4 days once they leave Earth's gravity to get to the moon. They'll fly around the moon, about 4 days back, and then land. So overall, about a 10-day mission.
Exactly. Yeah, these are really great questions, guys. We know that, again, we are sharing a lot of information today, so please do not hesitate to reach out. Obviously, Nicole, very smart here, and we're happy to answer any of your questions. Again, tag at NASA Artemis wherever you're watching this coverage. And now we actually have a question for you. Who would you take with you on a trip around the moon? Would it be your bestie? Would it be a pet, family member, or a seasoned astronaut? Think about that one. I know.
I like that.
I absolutely know what I would say. I think it would make my husband upset, but I have my answer here. But we'd love for you to go to NASA's Instagram or Twitch accounts to vote. Again, who would you take with to the moon with you? Bestie, pet, family, or seasoned astronaut? Try to go vote, and then we will share your answers soon. Again, husband is not going to like my answer. And we're not the only ones with questions today. We will also hear from celebrities during our launch coverage. See what Stanley Tucci, Scarlett Johansson, and others want to know about NASA's Artemis II test flight. Plus, the surprise of a lifetime as kids marveled at the rocket and spacecraft rolling to the launch pad. Look at those cute faces there. Oh, I love that. Love those suits. And we'll show you how the astronauts will eat, sleep, and go to the bathroom while in space. Keep in mind, the Orion spacecraft is about the size of a 6-person tent.
Yeah, not super big, but, you know, it's 10 days with your 3 best friends, so I think it's manageable for sure. But, you know, every ounce counts when you're trying to get to the moon.
And as we continue to look into the suit-up room here, a fist pump for some of the folks in the crowd there by Victor. Why don't we take a look around the center here? We know that there are some folks who are already getting ready to check out the team here as they drive across KSC to their launch pad. Look at that. Oh, that's so awesome.
That's a great crowd.
They're waiting there in front of the vehicle assembly building. So actually, they're just down the road from us. This is a good crowd, as Nicole said. Oh, there they are. They just got their cue. Oh, now? Let me wave now.
Oh, yeah, they are excited.
That's amazing. So all of these folks, content creators that are getting behind-the-scenes access as part of NASA's NASA social experience here. So as you can see, very excited. The crew will get into their convoy and drive past them here pretty shortly.
Yeah, what an amazing way to share the Artemis story, right? By inviting these social media experts out to share the story as they drive by.
All right, again, let's take a look at the clock. 4 hours, 58 minutes and counting from the opening of today's 2-hour launch window. So why don't we check back in with Daryl with the launch team.
Megan and Nicole, and inside Fire Room 1, I'm listening to Launch Director Charlie Blackwell Thompson greet the Ascent crew who just came on console over there at Johnson Space Center. So good to have the Mission Control team jumping on with us. So far, the launch team here in the firing room has had a really good morning. Really smooth tanking that kicked off at 7:30 a.m. this morning. They got to all stages replenish just before 1:00 p.m. Eastern time, and it was an incredibly smooth tanking. That's great as we look here watching the crew and also with an eye on the rocket. Weather, of course, we've talked a little bit about that. It's favorable overall, 80% go for our 2-hour window between 6:24 p.m.
A las 6:24 de la tarde hasta las 8:24 no tenemos en este momento un momento preciso para el lanzamiento. Eso lo sabremos más adelante, más cerca del lanzamiento, unos 20 minutos antes del despegue. Pero será dentro de esa ventana. Y Todo esto considerando que todo marcha sin tropiezos y hasta el momento ese ha sido el caso. Mencionaba que hubo un pequeño asunto, eso fue un error, no hay ningún factor adverso. Los ingenieros, los expertos en aviónica están atentos a la nave Orión. No hay nada fuera de los rangos normales, todo está bien. Pero notaron la tendencia y la reportaron al director de pruebas de la NASA. Así que ellos se mantendrán atentos, pero nuevamente no hubo ningún problema, ningún factor adverso. Y una vez que se elimine la cobertura para protegerlos de la lluvia, esperan que la situación se estabilice en cuanto a temperatura. Y con esto regresamos con Megan y Nicole. Gracias. Estamos aquí en el centro de control, como lo mencionan. Esto se construyó en 1967 para apoyar el proyecto Apolo. La misión Apolo 11, que se posó en la Luna, fue controlada desde esta misma sala. La NASA luego mejoró el centro para apoyar misiones de los transbordadores espaciales y de Artemis. Acá tienen una vista cuando se estaba operando con el transbordador. Ahora para Artemis, el grupo principal está en el Salón 1, pero hay equipo de respaldo en la Sala 2 para este ambicioso vuelo de prueba más allá de los confines de la Tierra.
Back to the moon because it's the next step in our journey to Mars. We need to go explore the moon. There's vast regions of unexplored areas with the coldest, darkest places in our solar system. This is a test mission, and when we get off the planet, we might come right back home. We might spend 3 or 4 days around Earth. We might go to the moon. That's where we want to go, but it is a test mission, and we are ready for every scenario as we ride this amazing space launch system and the Orion spacecraft.
But another reason we're going back to the moon is to fulfill NASA's mission, which is to explore the unknown in air and space, to innovate for the benefit of humanity, and to inspire the world through discovery. And when we succeed and when we accomplish the things that we set out to accomplish, that inspiration not only can set up new things to happen, but it also is a reminder in tough times that we're capable of doing great things when we work together.
The thing I love about the moon is that it's not just a beacon for exploration and this platform of possibilities for incredible missions like this, but it has benefits. That's actually why we're racing towards it. Those benefits are really wide in nature. You have everything from innovation, technology development, not only for future missions going deeper into the solar system, but technologies that come back to Earth. You have inspiration, a whole generation of people starting this pipeline of STEM workers and manufacturers and operators that are excited to see what you can do when you work hard and you come together as a team.
When I think about the 4 of us flying around the far side of the moon, seeing that Earth rise, taking images and video and sending them back to you, the feeling that I have inside is hope. We know that Artemis II is not the solution for humanity on planet Earth, but it is a contribution in the positive column. We hope that just for a moment that people will pause and say, wow, it's extraordinary when you look back upon the Earth with over 8 billion people, and you see this concrete example of what humanity can do, this extraordinary thing when we set big goals and we work together to achieve them.
Now, Kennedy's launch control team takes us to liftoff, but then mission control at NASA's Johnson Space Center in Houston takes over. That's where we have our Gary Jordan embedded with that team. Hey, Gary.
Hey, Megan and Nicole, it's great to be joining you from here in Houston, Texas. I'm in NASA's Mission Control Center, where the Artemis II Ascent flight control teams, led by Flight Director Judd Freeling, recently started their shift to monitor the Orion spacecraft integrity, the Space Launch System, and the crew to make sure all criteria is met to commit to today's launch and the mission ahead. The team you see here in this room today has been training extensively to prepare for the highly dynamic phase of flight that begins shortly after engine ignition. Teams here will be monitoring the flight of the Space Launch System, Orion, and of course the Artemis II crew on board.
Y por supuesto la tripulación cuando se presten a regresar. La posición principal está aquí en el salón blanco de control, que tiene un legado que se remonta al programa de exploración espacial hace más de 30 años. Cada consola representa a un experto en un área específica: comunicaciones, propulsión, salud, respaldo de la vida, trayectoria. Cada individuo tiene un equipo de respaldo en otros salones para asegurar que nada se queda sin verificar, ningún procedimiento se pasa por alto y puedan trabajar con el equipo de Artemis para la seguridad de la misión y el éxito de la misión. Luego, el personal estará aquí trabajando en forma continua en los próximos 10 días para que la nave esté preparada. Estarán trabajando con el equipo de recuperación. Van a trabajar para la preparación de la recuperación. El rugido del despegue es apenas el comienzo. La misión, por supuesto, es una misión de prueba, la primera con tripulación en el espacio profundo. El equipo va a analizar la capacidad de Orión y esto nos va a llevar más cerca de una presencia sostenida en la superficie lunar. Es interesante ver aquí a la tripulación, todos disfrutando. Volvemos contigo, con Megan, y vamos al control de misión. Gracias. Gracias, Gary. Sí, esta es una tradición que hemos visto con otros vuelos tripulados, el juego de cartas. Sí, este es un momento de relajamiento para la tripulación. Es un juego de cartas con el jefe. Aquí pareciera que están jugando la carta más alta gana. Ya dos fueron eliminados. Dice, bueno, o la mala suerte se va o la buena suerte llega. Es la tradición. Una de mis cosas favoritas de esta tradición es que querían trabajar, porque algunos de ellos tienen relaciones desde que estaban estudiando. Esto es parte de esa tradición simpática. Están aquí riéndose, pero muy enfocados en la misión. Pero cuando llegan aquí, este es un punto para sonrisas, para celebración, para alegría. Es un momento de relajamiento en el que va a ser sin duda un día bastante largo. Un día largo que requiere mucha preparación. Y al menos para nosotros fue un momento agradable para disipar la tensión, respirar profundo y reflexionar sobre la misión. Y sí, algunos saludos y buenos augurios. Así que buena suerte para todos. Parece que ya están listos. Es una de esas tradiciones simpáticas. Esto está vinculado más que nada a esa tradición. Todas las tripulaciones han tenido esta misma rutina. Como decías, Nicole, la razón primordial por la que están aquí es para hacer pruebas de comunicaciones, pruebas de presurización de los trajes. Reid le dijo algunas palabras a la tripulación. Sí. Esto no se puede hacer sin el trabajo de miles de personas. Es un gran ejemplo. Los técnicos de los trajes, el personal de apoyo, ellos han estado trabajando con este equipo desde hace años en su preparación. Saludos al grupo. Este equipo que ven aquí, vestidos de blanco, es el personal especializado de los trajes. Vamos a hablar más adelante de otros detalles, pero cada uno de los tripulantes tenía su propio técnico, trabajando con la misma persona una y otra vez para asegurar que se sintieran confortables y estuvieran listos cuando llegara el momento de ponerse estos trajes en el centro Kennedy. Cada traje es ligeramente diferente, así que los técnicos conocen los detalles de cada uno de los tripulantes, exactamente cómo les gusta vestirse, cómo se preparan, ajustes que puedan ser necesarios. Sus técnicos conocen esos detalles muy bien. Unas cuantas fotografías aquí. Y esperamos que estén descubriendo mucho acerca de los trajes y de este proceso y la misión. Pero imagínense la oportunidad de tener una demostración de la gente que diseña estos trajes. Veamos. ¿Alguien se quiere probar los guantes? Me encanta cómo se emocionan los chicos con el tema del espacio. Acá pueden poner sus manos. Algunos están muy emocionados porque esperan ser astronautas cuando sean grandes. Sería algo increíble. Quisiera ser ingeniero.
And that was a special event at Johnson Space Center. What we just saw there, obviously a big part of why this mission is so important to NASA, really just an opportunity to inspire everyone, especially kids, right, Nicole, to dream big and be curious.
Oh, man, yeah, the kids are so important, right? I love talking to kids. They are the future of spaceflight. They are the Artemis generation. And, if we could just inspire even one of them to go on to be a scientist or an engineer or maybe even an astronaut someday, that's a win.
And now let's turn our focus to the rocket for a little bit. Powering liftoff will be, again, NASA's Space Launch System rocket right behind us. And to learn more about SLS, let's go to Megan Carter, who's at Kennedy Space Center's Visitor Complex at an exhibit dedicated to Artemis and the future of spaceflight.
That's right, Megan. I am so excited to be over here at the Visitor Center, but not just because of launch. I get to introduce you to the moon board. This is obviously a very complex mission, lots of moving parts and pieces. So the moon board is going to allow me to break some of those things down for you just a little bit more in depth, starting with that SLS rocket. Now, the SLS, or the Space Launch System, very big, very powerful. It is going to be producing 8.8 million pounds of thrust at launch. And like I mentioned, very large, as you can see here, going to stand about 322 feet tall with Orion there on top, just a little bit taller than the Statue of Liberty. Now, there are many components that make up this rocket, so I'm going to point out just a handful that you're going to hear about a lot throughout this broadcast, starting with our boosters. These two twin solid rocket boosters are going to be very powerful. They are going to burn for the first 2.5 minutes of flight, and each one is going to stand 17 stories tall. They weigh in at about 1.6 million pounds each. Now, I am going to jump back out and I'm going to show you a little bit about our core stage. That's going to be known as the backbone, essentially, of our rocket. And it is made up of around 5 components, starting with this engine section down here. This engine section is where our 2 propellants are going to be funneled down through our pipelines, and they are going to be mixed at 2 different temperatures, very complex processing, and they are then going to go on to feed that fuel to our 4 very powerful RS-25 engines. These are going to produce about 500,000 pounds of thrust each at launch, and they will burn for 8 minutes. All right, now jumping up here, we are going to take a look, because I just mentioned those propellants. Obviously, we do need fuel, and that is why we have around 535,000 gallons of that liquid hydrogen. That's approximately about the same amount that you could fill an Olympic-sized pool, just to give you an idea. And then we're also going to have that liquid oxygen, and like I mentioned, there's going to be about 200,000 gallons for that one, and they are going to be funneled down through those lines that you see here on the side. All right, jumping up real quick, this is going to be our upper stage. That is where our core avionics are going to be stored, essentially the brains of the spacecraft. And then jumping out super quick, let's see if we can zoom in here, and we can. Those propellants I talked about are going to be stored at cryogenic temperatures. That means thousands of degrees below Fahrenheit, so they have to be kept very cold. And that, all those bumps and ridges there that you see, those are actually going to be an insulation spray that's going to help keep that rocket nice and cool, keep the propellants ready to go, and get us set up for success. Now, obviously, that was a very quick overview of our rocket. I have so much more to show you here on our moon board, but for now, I'm going to turn it back over to you, Megan.
Hola, ¿qué tal? Carlos Robles, jefe de meteorología de Noticias Telemundo, por aquí en el Centro Espacial Kennedy, el conteo regresivo para la misión Artemis II, para que finalmente la NASA esta tarde lance el cohete SLS hacia la Luna. Este conteo continúa y, como se diría en inglés, so far, so good. Todo luce miel sobre hojuelas en términos de este lanzamiento. ¿El por qué? El proceso de llenar los tanques de combustible del cohete SLS ha transcurrido con normalidad. No han identificado algún escape de combustible durante las pasadas horas y esto ha sido uno de los mayores problemas que ha estado encarando la NASA en previos intentos de lanzamiento. Combustible que obviamente se fuga de los tanques del cohete y que obviamente es muy peligroso llevar a cabo un lanzamiento si existe fuga de combustible. Por el momento el tiempo luce pues un tanto complicado, pudiera decir, en el sentido de que algunas nubes de lluvias y tormentas se han estado acercando. No obstante, a las 6:24 de la tarde, cuando abre la ventana de oportunidad, se entiende, las simulaciones meteorológicas nos muestran que la situación debería estar bastante clara en este sector. La brisa sí es fuerte, pero no alcanza las 33 millas por hora, que es el criterio para que la NASA no lance el cohete si el viento es así de fuerte. Está rondando entre las 16 a las 20 millas por hora, así que aún es aceptable. Temprano en la mañana de hoy, la NASA comunicaba que a las 9:24 de la mañana los astronautas se levantaron, tuvieron su buen desayuno y que inclusive conversaban con sus familiares. Ya cercano a las horas del mediodía se estaban acercando a lo que es el Centro Espacial Kennedy y se espera que durante las primeras horas de la tarde ya hagan lo que se le conoce como el conocido walk out, que es el momento que ellos salen de este lugar y se dirigen hacia lo que es la plataforma 39B, el lugar donde se encuentra el stack, realmente donde se encuentra el cohete SLS, el vehículo espacial que los llevará finalmente a orbitar la Luna en una misión de 10 días. Así que realmente eso es lo que ha estado ocurriendo aquí. Como dijimos previamente, la situación luce muy bien. La NASA ha estado informando que todo transcurre en orden y que al parecer pudiéramos tener lanzamiento del cohete SLS y de la cápsula Orión, donde irán estos 4 astronautas esta misma tarde. Usted se preguntará, ¿cuál es la importancia de esta misión y por qué luego de 50 años regresamos a la Luna? Bueno, la NASA está en medio de una carrera espacial por intentar llegar lo más rápido posible a la Luna nuevamente, pero en esta ocasión no tan solo a orbitarla, sino a permanecer en ella. Estamos hablando que ya para el 2028 la NASA prevé llevar a cabo la misión Artemis IV justo después de Artemis III. Artemis III tiene previsto salir el próximo año, orbitar la Tierra, probar nuevamente los sistemas de lo que es la cápsula Orión y también sus sistemas de lanzamiento para eventualmente en Artemis IV hacer un lanzamiento llevando astronautas y que estos puedan alunizar en el satélite de la Tierra y así de esta manera permanecer allí de forma permanente, en lo que se le conoce de igual forma como lo que es el hemisferio sur de la Luna. Así las cosas, es una misión realmente histórica. Los astronautas, por lo menos en esta ocasión, estarán recorriendo más de 280,000 millas de distancia de lo que es la Tierra hacia la otra cara de la Luna, lo que se le conoce como el lado oculto de la Luna, donde los ojos de ningún humano han podido ver, y estos 4 astronautas van a poder lograrlo. Así las cosas, es la expectativa que se tiene. Aquí el ambiente obviamente es de emoción, pero también así de alta expectativa de lo que pudiera estar ocurriendo esta tarde y obviamente nos llena de mucho orgullo poder estar aquí. Es un honor estar aquí en este momento tan histórico. Esa es mi intervención de todo lo que acontece desde el Centro Espacial Kennedy en Cabo Cañaveral, la Florida.
Yeah, this is a really great shot, right? Because you get to see a little bit of what goes on there. So you've got the close family that were in quarantine with them up close. They get to wave goodbye one last time. You've got a little bit of media in the background, and then you've got some NASA employees and a lot of the program managers off to the side as well to wave goodbye one last time and wish them luck.
Yeah, it's a really nice moment. Again, they have had some quality time with family, but this is their final opportunity to say, see ya in 10 days.
Yep, the last wave.
And so there are different pens of people, again, as Nicole was alluding to, specific to the quarantine rules that you followed in order to be able to have that access, have that closeness with the crew. And then on the bottom left-hand side of your screen, the Astrovan. And that is going to be the crew's ride out to the launch pad. This modified Airstream motorhome can seat up to 8 people inside. It has a TV and sound system, and we know they plan to watch a video during their trip out, right, Nicole?
Yes. So I think Top Gun is on the menu,
yes.
And then also Point Break, because Christina surfs. So I think they've got a pretty decent entertainment planned. So
I love that. It gets them in the headspace, the right headspace to really just enjoy the ride to space. NASA's history with Airstream dates back to the 60s when the company created a crew quarantine vehicle for when astronauts returned from the moon. This picture here, President Nixon talking to the Apollo 11 astronauts inside said quarantine vehicle. Then during the shuttle program, Airstream created the first generation Astrovan, a 27-foot motorhome that transported astronauts across KSC to their launch pad. And again, that is what we're going to see today. A very similar picture. Again, the orange suits, the Astrovan, very reminiscent of what we have done before and how we got to where we are now.
Yeah, and it's a pretty cool ride. You get about 20 minutes to get out to the launch pad and watch a movie, listen to some music. It's kind of an interesting, and then along the whole way here at KSC, all of the employees from Kennedy Space Center come out. You can see in the background of the shot you're looking at right now, all of those employees and everybody lining the streets, waving and wishing them luck.
I think this is an emotional moment for a lot of people because this is the last time where a lot of people will be with the crew, because once they get to the pad, there's only a handful of folks with them before launch.
Yeah, definitely. This can be emotional for the crew, can be emotional for the families, of course. I mean, I got to wave goodbye one last time to my sister, and when we walked out those doors, and it's surreal. It starts to become much more real the closer and closer you get to the launch pad.
20 seconds now from when we expect the crew to walk out those doors. It must be really hard for them to patiently wait for these very specific milestones.
You've got a whole group back there that's telling jokes and keeping it light. So.
And here they are, NASA's Artemis II crew. Commander Reid Wiseman, pilot Victor Glover, and mission specialist Christina Cook and Jeremy Hansen taking their first steps outside for
La
their
tripulación
historic test flight.
Saliendo para el comienzo de este vuelo histórico. Aplausos del público. Están muy emocionados. Todos sonrisas. Es un gran día para nosotros y para todo el equipo. Algunas palabras de Reid. Un gran día para nosotros, dijo. Para todo el equipo. Los pulgares arriba, muchas fotografías. Se alcanzan a escuchar al fondo. Las cámaras. Mucha energía. Y ahora la tripulación acercándose a los distintos grupos, la gente más cercana, sus familiares que compartieron la cuarentena con ellos. Los que están más cerca, saludando, son familiares inmediatos, cónyuges, hijos de los astronautas, y les damos cierta privacidad para que puedan conversar con sus familiares. Cristina estaba allí con su esposo, Víctor tiene 4 hijas y su esposa, allí Reid con sus 2 hijas y Jeremy con su esposa, 2 hijas y un hijo. Cuando uno está en esa posición, cuando estabas en la tripulación 10, cuéntanos cómo fue tu experiencia. Bueno, ellos ya se han despedido formalmente, así que esto es más bien como esa última oportunidad de un saludo, una sonrisa. Esto es un poco más distendido, en cierto modo, algunas bromas, por ejemplo, allá. Es un momento muy especial para la tripulación. Allí están las hijas de Reid. Él habló de cuando fue seleccionado para comandar esta misión. estaba preocupado. Él es un padre soltero y al día siguiente, cuando le comentó a sus hijas, una de ellas le trajo unos pastelitos. Todo el mundo necesita un sistema de apoyo y ciertamente lo tienen sus hijas. Cristina hablaba de esto y dijo que había mucha niebla en ese momento. Pero igual, estamos contentos por todos ellos. Y la luna los espera. Un poco más cerca, el comandante Reid Wiseman y Cristina Cook, especialista de misión. Si ven allá Victor Glover, el piloto, él con su esposa y sus hijas, y una de ellas gritando, ¡vamos! Mucho respaldo de la familia y eso es fantástico. Y Jerry me decía que su esposa y sus hijas muy emocionadas, se sintieron que tenían mucho apoyo. Y hay conversaciones que son difíciles, por supuesto, hablar de la realidad de un vuelo de prueba, pero han tenido su pleno respaldo. Unos besos de Víctor a su familia, corazones para Cristina. Y Jeremy haciendo una pausa para la fotografía. Corazones de parte de Reid. Víctor saludando a sus familias, al grupo. Un saludo a ejecutivos de la NASA, los gerentes de misión. Escucharon a Reid dando las gracias, aplausos y el grupo abordando su astrofurgoneta. Vamos justamente en hora, de acuerdo con el muy detallado cronograma de lanzamiento. Se espera que salgan de acá en unos 20 segundos.
So far, we're marching toward the launch smoothly.
Do you think they're queuing up the video?
Definitely.
And that's why they haven't left yet? They're like, we can't go without
Gotta get
our
your
point
snacks and movie
break.
ready.
Yeah. Where's the popcorn? Again, good on the timeline. Of course, they do have these very specific milestones, but this is not one that has to be completely stuck to the second of the minute.
Yeah, we will make up that time easily.
They will get a full security escorted ride out to the launch pad. It's a quick trip, 15, 20 minutes. The closeout crew at the pad, still just getting everything ready for their arrival. Configuring Orion, right, Nicole?
Yes, so they're probably laying out the seat restraints and getting all of the umbilicals set and ready to go so that when the crew gets there, they can ingress and start getting strapped in and connected to the capsule.
And in our smaller box there, we have a shot of our administrator, Jared Isaacman, bouncing around quite a lot today. Was in the firing room right after the crew weather brief, saying to the crew that they are good for them to start suiting up, and now here to wish them well as they drive out to the pad.
Yes, he's so invested in this mission. I love it. You know, he's been an active participant today, and exciting to see him there at the walkout. So in the van, they're probably getting hooked up to the portable cooling systems as well. So that would be my guess on the slight delay here, making sure everybody's situated, connected to cooling, and ready to go before they take off.
Right, because the orange boxes, we didn't talk about it when we were in the suit-up room, but if anybody noticed, there are these orange boxes, and that's what provides the cooling to those thermal garments. And so those boxes have been staged inside of the Astrovan so that once they got there, they can connect up again so that they're cool and comfortable on the way out.
Right, so they were off cooling from the walkout, you know, said hello to their families and the 80-degree weather here in Florida today. So it can get really warm in the suit quickly if you're not careful. So we want to make sure everybody's comfortable before we drive off.
And then when they get to the pad, of course, and strapped into Orion, then they don't have any need for those cooling boxes anymore. They will get that cooling through Orion, through the different lines and umbilicals that they'll be connecting to there.
Yep, that's exactly right. The Orion capsule and its environmental control system will take over once they're connected to the umbilical.
And so when we were watching them get into the elevator, I said, oh, there's a couple more people going in there. And they were, again, those folks in the white suits that we saw. Again, suit technicians.
Yep. And there they go.
And off they go. Reid, Victor, Christina, and Jeremy now on their way to launch pad 39B, where they will fly to the moon, something no human has done in over 50 years. They may also set a new record as the farthest humans have ever been from Earth, a record set by the Apollo 13 crew almost 56 years ago today. We still hear cheers as they drive away from the operations and checkout building here at Kennedy Space Center. Now, while the crew make their way to the pad, let's get to know each of them even better. First, Commander Reid Wiseman.
The moon, to me, it's the thing that connects me together with all the other humans in my life. I remember being a little kid lying in bed at night and just looking out at the moon in whatever phase it was in, and I was thinking, man, my friends that live like 20 miles away, they can probably look out and see that same exact moon. And then when I was in the Navy and I would look out at the moon and I'd be halfway around the planet, I would think, man, my brother can see that moon where he is and he's halfway around the planet from where I am. To me, it's a connection of life on Earth. We can all look up and see that moon, and it's always changing. The moon is never the same 2 days in a row. I love that. My name is Reid Wiseman. I'm the commander of NASA's Artemis II mission around the moon. I grew up in a little town just north of Baltimore, Maryland, about 20 miles north of the city. There was a National Guard base nearby my house, and there were A-10 aircraft that would fly over every now and then. I just would look up at them and be like, man, I want to be up there. I want to go do that. And then my brother went to the Naval Academy, and I would go every year and watch the Blue Angels fly during commencement. And that just started to grow and grow and grow. For a while, I wanted to join the Air Force, and then I realized Navy flies as well, and they fly from ships in the middle of the ocean. And that was it, like, done deal for me. That is exactly what I wanted to do for my career. Flying is freedom to me, especially when you're in a jet aircraft coming off of an aircraft carrier in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. Nearest land is over 1,500 miles away. So when you come off of that aircraft carrier, you are truly just alone with yourself out there. It is a magical experience to be out there all by yourself in an aircraft over the Pacific. Just it's free. I think anybody who accomplishes something that they set their mind out to, there's no one thing that does it for them. It's a combination of everything. I mean, the way my parents raised me, the way my brother and I, the way our relationship developed over time, my friends, being in the marching band, going to college, setting my own course, learning how to live on my own, being mentored along the way, being, kept on the path to success, but being given the freedom to, make excursions and fail every now and then and regroup and carry on. I think all those things come together in the end to get you where you are. I've had to overcome I mean, I'm a human being. I've had to overcome a lot of fears. I'm pretty scared of heights. I joked about that on the International Space Station, but it turns out I'm only scared like at the edge of a building. When you're up on the International Space Station, even though you're 250 miles up, I never had that feeling of falling or that I was, at risk up there. I just kind of loved the feeling of floating and looking down at Earth. There have been challenges all throughout my life. By far, the biggest challenge was losing my wife in 2020 to cancer and now raising two daughters who are grown up now, but that's been the biggest challenge by far I've ever had to face. It is not easy. Being an only parent, trying to work a full-time job, and raising two kids is something that I think about every single day. I'm very proud of the work I've done. I haven't always done it well, but I've always shown up and tried as hard as I possibly can.
And now Artemis II pilot Victor Glover and his journey to this history-making moment.
I do wonder what it's going to be like when we are really far from Earth and can see it. The sensation of being so far away from everything that you know. I had that sensation on the space station the first time I got to sit in the cupola for a really long time. So I can only imagine what that's going to be like from 200,000 plus miles away. My name is Victor Glover, and I'm the pilot for NASA's Artemis II mission around the moon. When I was in 4th grade, I was 10 years old, and that's when the Challenger accident happened. And it helped me understand how the general public felt about the astronaut corps, right? Like, these are the people that we want to be, and that just gave me an easy thing to strive toward. The biggest fear that I've had to overcome in my life is doubting myself. Going to college when no one in my family had gone to college was a huge risk. I had more confidence in my athletic ability than in my academic abilities. I could play football with those college students that I saw on TV. But my classmates that I saw in the lab and around the University Union, I didn't know if I had what they had. I think addressing that self-doubt was a part of, swinging for the fence and trying to go get an engineering degree, not just go to college, but get an engineering degree and then go do something challenging and technical like flying. Apollo is known for sending humans to the moon. Artemis has an opportunity to continue the Apollo story, but I actually think it's important for this story to stand on its own. Artemis is a new program, and we're trying to do new things. And it's great to compare and contrast. When you look at our spaceship, you can see parts that were designed, built, and integrated in another country. When you look at our crew, you see that our crew is international. There are also men and women. And I just think that comparing and contrasting makes the story even richer. The piloting role specifically, I will have an hour and a half or so where I get to fly the spacecraft by hand. We haven't flown that many spaceships. And so the ability to fly one actually in space on a test mission is just a really unique opportunity. I can't tell you how I'm going to feel when we fly by the moon and see the moon up close and the Earth from 250,000 miles away, but I don't use the word excited because I'm focused. What we do, this is very serious and it's very risky, and we are all intimately familiar with that risk. And so if we go out there and we're successful and we can pass that baton on to Artemis III, that's something to really be excited about.
Great to hear from Reid and Victor in their own words about how they feel about this mission and their role in it as the convoy turns this corner here onto the road where the vehicle assembly building is, and where the group that we showed you earlier today, ready with their flags. Wow, that group has expanded exponentially. Yes, this is great.
So many people.
Flags. Oh my gosh, I love it. Oh, this must feel so special to the crew to see all of these people here to wish them well.
Yes, this is heartwarming. Look at how many people there are. Everyone is so excited about this mission.
Signs, people have made signs. I feel like the Astrovan has slowed down a little bit, to really take in the moment.
Wow.
That's amazing there. Again, crowds continue going, as we are now passing the historic vehicle assembly building. This is where the Space Launch System rocket was assembled and stacked with Orion. Its history, of course, goes back to the Apollo days, but today it is home to the Artemis missions to the moon and beyond. Gosh, still people lining the route. Yep.
I love that.
I do too. It leaves me kind of speechless, you know, just to see all the support, all the people who want to know that they're thinking of them, they're with them, and the fact that this crew specifically has always said we are going for all by all, this must be really special to them.
Yes, and that's just here on Kennedy Space Center. Imagine the rest of Florida right now.
Yeah. Mission Specialist Christina Cook, who holds the record for the most consecutive days in space by a woman. Let's take a look at what she has to say about this mission.
I tell a story, which is one that my dad told me before the Apollo missions when he was just a very little boy. He was looking up at the moon with his mom, and his mom said to him, "Don't worry, Ronnie, we'll never get there." Fast forward maybe 70 years later, it's his daughter that's actually going there. And I think that long arc is something that we can all learn from. The idea that the seemingly impossible becomes possible if you just believe in it and are willing to work hard and come together to achieve it. My name is Christina Cook, and I'm a mission specialist for NASA's Artemis II mission around the moon. When I look back at my dreams as a kid, I definitely never thought I would actually get here. I was very pragmatic. Even though I'm a dreamer, I knew that the odds were way against me again, so I might as well do something I'm loving in the meantime. I definitely loved science and math in school and, you know, did pretty well in those things, but I also loved being active. I was always outside. I loved things that made me feel small. I loved looking at the night sky, oftentimes between the pine tree branches, or I loved the ocean. North Carolina also has mountains, and when we go there, I just love the vastness of all of those things. I loved how they made me feel and what they made me think about, and the vastness of the universe and how much out there was to learn. I'm drawn to exploring. I'm drawn to challenges that involve both mental and physical, and I'd much rather be solving problems, wearing a whole lot of equipment, and in a harsh environment, and that's just something I've carried with me ever since I was a kid. Thinking about the fears or challenges that I've had to overcome, there are just so many. I mean, basically, that has been the journey. I always say to people, do what scares you, and that means I have to follow my own advice. So doing what scares me meant getting on a plane and going to the Antarctic, getting on a plane and going to study abroad in Ghana, applying to become an astronaut, opening the EVA hatch in the airlock and going out of it into the darkness, strapping myself onto a rocket. And so for me, I think that no matter what the challenge, recognizing that if people believe in you and you believe they believe in you, the challenges seem always a little bit easier. To me, the moon, it represents history. It is a witness plate. Everything that's ever happened to the moon is still written on the moon. Every single person has looked at the moon their entire lives. We see the same moon. That's something really special. It's just the epitome of a symbol of something that's in each of our hearts, but that's also represents exploration and reaching.
And as we continue to watch the convoy, almost at the pad, mission specialist and first-time flyer, Canadian astronaut Jeremy Hansen.
I have this very distinct memory of seeing an image of an astronaut standing on the moon. It's burnt in my brain because I went back to it so many times in my childhood, and I would look at that image, and I know it had a huge impact on me that humans had walked on the moon. My name is Colonel Jeremy Hansen. I'm an astronaut with the Canadian Space Agency, and I'm a mission specialist on NASA's Artemis II mission around the moon. My elementary school years, I grew up on a farm outside of London, Ontario. I spent as much time as I could with my dad on the farm. I learned the value of hard work, for example. If I wanted to go to work with Dad, it was going to be a long day, and I was going to have to not complain, or I wasn't going to get to go the next day. I had a treehouse. I had a vivid imagination, and I changed my treehouse into a spaceship. I made all these dials and controls. I had circuit breakers for switches that I found in the barn, and I was exploring space in my imagination. The most important thing I did to get to where I wanted to go in life, which was flying fighter jets and eventually becoming an astronaut, is I shared those desires with other people. And it turns out, just like you don't go to the moon on your own, if you could, I would have done it a long time ago in my treehouse as a kid, you have to go as a team. I think the biggest impediment to achieving my goals was, of course, myself. And I think that's a common human experience. There are many times where just little things would get in my way, and my immediate interpretation of that was, well, now that goal is out the window. You know, people must have lifted me back up, and somewhere in the back of my head, that persistence came through. And I think that's a common human experience, to doubt ourselves. I've come to this, I guess, realization that I believe that we all have gifts to contribute, and the goal is to figure out how to use your energy towards adding positively to humanity's existence on this planet. But I love it when humanity sets big goals, like sending humans to the surface of the moon with an eye to eventually going to Mars, because when we do that, we can bring together genius from not just even in one country, but around the world. I've also learned from my indigenous mentors that they refer to the moon as Grandmother Moon. So you've probably heard of Mother Earth. They use Grandmother Moon because Grandmother Moon is responsible for the water in their community, just like the moon moves the water around the planet, affects the tides. And I think that's a really beautiful thing for us as we go back to the moon, to think about all the different cultures around the world and how they view the moon differently. And that's really neat because we all share that same moon in the night sky.
What's really neat too was that drive to the launch pad, that point of view to see what
Continuamos
the
el recorrido
crew is
hacia
seeing
la
as well.
plataforma de lanzamiento. Esta es la misma vista que tiene la tripulación. Estamos ya a punto de salir del vehículo. Es increíble la altura de este cohete. Desde esta perspectiva, la plataforma 39B, un lugar histórico en el Centro Espacial Kennedy. La construcción comenzó en 1964, se completó 3 años más tarde. El Apolo 10, el ensayo general, digamos así, para el alunizaje, salió desde esta misma plataforma. Se ha usado para múltiples misiones, se modificó en los 70, en los 80, se utilizó en el programa de transbordadores. Artemis I salió desde aquí en noviembre de 2022 y ahora aquí estamos, listos para ver la tripulación de Artemis II saliendo de su vehículo para dirigirse a el corredor que les permitirá embarcar este primer vuelo tripulado del programa Artemis. El botón del elevador dice espacio. Estamos esperando que la tripulación salga. 4 horas, 10 minutos para que se abra la ventana de lanzamiento. Vamos con Daryl, quien ha estado siguiendo el proceso a cada paso. Gracias, Megan y Nicole. Y estamos aquí dentro del salón de control número 1. El director de vuelo, la directora Charlie Thompson, ella estaba tomando fotografías con su celular. Ella acababa de dar la autorización para que pasaran los astronautas y se dirigieran hacia la plataforma. Aquí vemos a la tripulación saliendo del vehículo, listos para tomar el ascensor en la torre de lanzamiento. Les dieron un parte meteorológico, todo sigue bien. Puede haber algo de lluvia, algunas lloviznas en la zona, si están aquí en el área y están observando, ciertamente notarán que ha habido algunas lloviznas. Habrá lluvias dispersas en las próximas horas y así será mientras continúe la cuenta regresiva, pero también el pronóstico indica que el cielo se va a despejar más cerca del lanzamiento. Un saludo de Reid Wiseman y la tripulación ya en el ascensor para dirigirse al nivel donde está la pasarela que los va a llevar hasta el Salón Blanco. Una de las cosas que van a escuchar de aquí en más es que van a escuchar a la tripulación. Van a tener la señal de comunicación entre la tripulación y el equipo de lanzamiento. Cuando venga la fase de configuración de las distintas consolas. Una breve pausa aquí para que vean los tripulantes caminando en la plataforma 0, el nivel 0. Allí mismo están los motores del cohete. Ellos podrán apreciar este sistema de lanzamiento espacial de 332 pies de alto. Esto estaba previsto para la tripulación de Artemis II. Este es el cohete que los va a llevar a hacer historia para llegar lo más lejos que haya llegado cualquier tripulación de la Tierra. La mayor distancia será de 248.000 millas. Se espera que vayan 4.000 millas más allá que la tripulación del Apolo 13, que tiene el récord. Y ahora se dirigen al ascensor. Ustedes van a estar escuchando a la tripulación en sus conversaciones con el equipo de lanzamiento, verificando distintos sistemas, y más cerca del lanzamiento vamos a escuchar al equipo de operaciones en la encuesta crucial pre-lanzamiento y la cuenta terminal. Aproximadamente a L-25, y cuando les den la autorización final, harán la consulta con los diferentes escritorios. Y la tripulación ya se dirigió al elevador para llegar a la pasarela de acceso. Aquí está el equipo de técnicos que los está esperando, todos preparados para recibir a la tripulación, para colocarlos dentro de la nave Integrity. Aquí podemos verlo. Regresamos con Megan y Nicole. Charlie Blackwell Thompson, directora de vuelo, su equipo se ha entrenado ampliamente para este momento desde noviembre de 2022. Hoy tiene un mensaje para Reid, Victor, Cristina y Jeremy. Hoy ustedes llevan consigo el trabajo de miles y las esperanzas de millones. Cada prueba, cada simulacro, cada largo día y noche ha llevado a este momento. Este equipo está listo, el vehículo está listo y ustedes están listos. Desde la Tierra a la Luna, adelante Artemis II. Me encanta ver a toda la gente que ha contribuido a esta misión y el hecho de que esto es por lo que han estado trabajando y esta es la culminación. Miles de personas han trabajado en esta misión, lo vimos, el equipo de lanzamiento, pero la exploración espacial es el mayor deporte de equipo. Veíamos a todo el equipo y estamos todos unidos deseándoles buena suerte a los astronautas. Aquí pueden ver la puerta del elevador, donde los astronautas van a cruzar la pasarela que los va a llevar hasta la estructura que ven allí. No solamente es una forma de que la tripulación tenga acceso a la nave Orión, sino que también es lo que les va a dar todos los recursos, toda la alimentación que requiere el cohete. Aquí vemos a los tripulantes en la pasarela de acceso con una hermosa vista del Centro Espacial Kennedy. 274 pies de altura. Nicole se ríe porque a ella tampoco le gusta la altura, igual que Reid. Pero Reid cruzó, buena noticia. Y ellos lo han disfrutado, ellos cruzaron la pasarela. Cristina, Víctor, los vimos allí. Y Reid sabe dónde está la cámara. Y está aprovechando la oportunidad una vez más para decirle a la gente, estamos bien, listos. Y ahora están firmando sus insignias. Es una tradición también, firman las insignias antes del lanzamiento. Esta es la primera vez que lo están haciendo en el cuarto blanco, en la plataforma 39B. No me citen en esto, pero creo que esto comenzó con el programa de vuelos comerciales. Hay muchos de estos en la plataforma 39A, pero esta es la 39B. Y ahora aquí, en el cuarto blanco, la tripulación se pone sus equipos de comunicación, sus guantes, sus cascos y se quitan los cubrebotas para protegerlos en la caminata hasta acá. Así que aquí van con los últimos detalles de preparación. Estos son sus gorros con el equipo de comunicación. Y a medida que observamos este proceso, algunas preguntas. ¿Qué es lo más difícil de la preparación para un vuelo? Muy buena pregunta. Esta tripulación se ha estado entrenando desde hace años. Ellos conocen el cohete, la cápsula, los riesgos, saben cómo reaccionar a las contingencias. Así que creo que este día es más difícil para las familias que para los tripulantes. Pero ellos han hablado de las conversaciones con sus familias en preparación para este histórico vuelo. Mientras más cerca van llegando, hay otros elementos. Dejaron sus maletas de equipaje, sus teléfonos celulares. Así que aquí son seres humanos en un traje espacial listos para ir al espacio. La familia observando quizás sea la parte más difícil desde el punto de vista emocional. Sí, esta es la primera vez, confirmamos, es la primera vez que firman la pared del cuarto blanco aquí en la plataforma 39B. ¿Otra pregunta de redes sociales? Todas las ventanas de lanzamiento son en la tarde. ¿Por qué? Se refieren a las oportunidades de abril. Bueno, la respuesta es complicada. No sé si le puedo dar los detalles mecánicos, pero tiene que ver con mecánica orbital y la posición relativa de la Tierra y la Luna. Tenemos que tener una trayectoria muy específica y todo depende de cuándo se puede hacer el perigeo, el apogeo, la inyección translunar. Hay muchos cálculos matemáticos detrás de todo esto y por qué hay que hacer ciertos ajustes y por qué estos lanzamientos son en horas de la tarde. Buena respuesta. La pregunta para ustedes. ¿A quién llevarían con ustedes a la Luna? ¿Sus mascotas? ¿A quién llevarían? Esa fue mi respuesta. No le gustó mucho a mi esposo. Pero creo que si le preguntaran, él también diría que de compañía quiero un astronauta con experiencia. Esta gente puede reaccionar ante cualquier contingencia. Sin ese entrenamiento, sí, más vale tener a alguien con experiencia. Respuesta correcta para todos. Otra pregunta. ¿Qué quieren saber acerca de la vida a bordo de Orión? ¿Cómo comen? ¿Cómo vuelan? ¿O cuánto tiempo libre tienen? Excelente pregunta. Bueno, pueden votar en Instagram y les compartiremos los resultados muy pronto.
And while you're doing that, remember to also sign up to be a virtual guest for this mission. Just go to the link we'll pull up on your screen. As a virtual guest, you will get mission-specific information, notifications of any schedule changes, and curated resources straight to your inbox. You will also receive commemorative stamps for your virtual passport after launch and splashdown. Again, we really, really want you guys to engage with us, engage with this mission, come along with us for the ride. So yeah, take advantage of these opportunities to be a part of it.
Yes, it's a mission for all.
And so back in the suit, no, not the suit-up room, the white room. Well, they're suiting up. You can see why I might have slipped that up. So they are continuing to put on gloves. Reid and Jeremy look like they've been checked. Again, they've put on their gloves, their helmets. They've taken off those coverings on their shoes now that they're about to get into Orion. And then suit technicians are also helping Christina and Victor. And they're in this particular order, actually, because this is the order in which they're going to ingress into Orion. Again, we have Reid, Jeremy, then Victor, last Christina.
Yeah, and that just has to do, like you said, with the seat orientation. So as the astronauts sit down and lay back in the capsule, the left side will be Reid, and then below him will be Jeremy. So that's why they're going to get in first, to create space for then Victor and Christina to get in.
And let's talk a little bit now about the closeout team. We saw a few of these folks also in the suit-up room. Suit technicians were in there, again, to make sure that they get into the suits properly. And then a couple of them came out to the pad here to, again, do the same thing. Hey, are you comfortable in these suits? Is everything is as you expected? And then these folks here will help them get into Orion, buckle up. And so we were talking a little bit about their attire, specially made for what they're doing right now.
Yeah, so these, they almost look like, the equivalent of a flight suit, right? They're fire resistant. They've got the straps on the back for emergencies that mimic the same straps that the astronauts have on their suits, so that you can use the same exact equipment in an emergency egress from the pad, for example. So we can use the same equipment to get everybody safely away from the pad as required or if needed.
Yeah, always thinking about those contingencies, how to very quickly, if there were an emergency, get everyone out, not just the astronauts, but also the closeout crew if an emergency was happening while they were still at the pad. And so those suits, flame retardant. Also, when we see them crawl into Orion, you will notice that they are on their knees quite a bit, so built-in knee pads. Really a thoughtful design for the purpose that they're serving today.
Yeah, they're functional, which is exactly what we want, but also they're pretty classy looking. So we did a good job with the design.
I was going to say, they actually look like, the outfits that car racers wear, right?
Yeah.
And then when I said that to the lead of the closeout crew, he's number one if we do see him, Taylor Hose, he said, well, actually, we are kind of like a pit crew, like they're very quickly moving through the operations so that not a lot of time, not more time is spent at the pad than is needed, because this is a fully fueled rocket, Nicole.
Right, yeah, we want to minimize the time that we have more humans up in the White Room, but also safely and efficiently get the astronauts ingressed into the capsule. And so that's their main job. That's I like the pit crew analogy, works great.
And so, Nicole, as we get ready to see them ingress, I know you'll be, again, an invaluable source as we talk through this part of the launch countdown, because you've been inside a mock-up of the Orion spacecraft. And I know that because you texted me a photo that you took, this selfie in the mock-up, and little did you know I was going to put it in this broadcast.
Yeah, this was actually a really wonderful opportunity. Last week, our flight control team at Johnson Space Center hosted an open house of the Orion mock-up there in the Space Vehicle mock-up facility. And so I got to spend some time in the capsule with some of the flight controllers who are actually sitting on console right now and talk to them about everything inside the mock-up. So you can see I've got a bump cap on. It's like a small hard hat. There are a lot of, metal corners and things, and we are still squishy humans at the end of the day. And so they want you to be careful while you're moving around in there. But I got to see, how the crew will ingress. I got to look at the umbilical and the seat straps, and I got to see, the emergency equipment and the stowage and the toilet. I got to see it all. Got to talk about everything. It was pretty cool. It was a really great time. Michael and Bruce were great with me. They answered all of my questions.
Yeah, because it's really good to be able to give that perspective, because, and as you guys will see, yes, we do have cameras inside Orion and we'll of course take you in, but it doesn't give you a true feeling or idea of how big the space is, how things are configured. Again, like when we see them go in, they're actually on their backs.
Yep.
So, again, it's just hard to really get a sense of the inside there, but Nicole is going to really help walk us through that.
Yeah, you said they're on their backs, and, you have to somehow get there, and so they're actually going to almost barrel roll onto their shoulder to get onto their backs and their feet up on those leg rests that actually Andre's holding onto right there. You can see Andre number 2's inside getting everything ready for them. And actually, those leg rests for the pilot and commander seat will come off once they get into orbit. to create some more space for them.
And it looks like we're getting ready to ingress here. Yep, thumbs up from Reid. Everybody configured with their suits, and so in we go. They actually get inside by walking backwards. That's the easiest way to get in, right, Nicole?
Yeah, so he will step down right over the flywheel or the exercise equipment that they've got in there. We'll talk to that in a second. And then you actually step down right on top of the toilet area backwards. You can see him going now.
Aquí pueden ver, ha comenzado el ingreso de la tripulación, protegiendo su casco, su visor de algunos elementos metálicos. Hay poco espacio, pero es una maniobra que han ensayado múltiples veces. Fue muy rápido, Reid, por eso eres el comandante. Un corazoncito ahí de Jeremy, Canadá. Se apresta a ingresar a la nave Orión. Hablabas de Trey. Hablemos un poco acerca de él. El astronauta Andre Douglas, uno de los miembros del equipo de respaldo. Él se entrenó junto con la tripulación primaria y pudiera entrar como reemplazo si alguno no pudiera volar. Por cierto que somos del mismo grupo de astronautas. Trabajamos juntos y me emociona mucho verlo en esta función. Oriundo de Virginia, fue seleccionado como candidato a astronauta en diciembre de 2021. Completó su entrenamiento en marzo de 2024 y fue nombrado para el equipo de respaldo de Artemis II en julio. Previamente trabajó en la Universidad de Johns Hopkins en el Laboratorio de Física Aplicada, donde se especializó en ingeniería aeroespacial. Su trabajo se concentra en los sistemas que orientan las naves espaciales y cómo establecen su trayectoria, algo crucial para las misiones a la Luna. Tiene creo que 15 títulos. Aquí estamos nuevamente dentro de la cápsula Orión, donde vemos a el equipo de ingreso, cada uno de ellos con Reid o con Jeremy, creo que Andre está con Reid. Y esta es una vista a un contraplano de Reid. Le están colocando su arnés de 5 puntos. Reid estaba configurando su panel de control. Tienen listas sus pantallas para poder observar el desempeño de cada uno de los sistemas. Ahí están, firmas en la pared. Hay que guardar el marcador para no tener objetos foráneos. NASA todos lleva un control, todo tiene que estar controlado en inventario porque cualquier pequeño detalle puede causar un contratiempo. Habrán notado que las herramientas están todas sujetas para que nada se caiga o se extravíe. Tan pronto como Jeremy y Reid estén listos en posición y conectados con sus cordones umbilicales de comunicación, como dijimos, vamos a comenzar a escuchar el audio de control de misión. Orión y Tierra 1, Orion to Earth 1, son los dos primeros equipos que van a estar trabajando en el lanzamiento de hoy. Y, como decíamos, una vez que hacen las pruebas de comunicación, la verificación que no hay fugas en los trajes en aumento de presurización, y están conectándolos con los sistemas de Orión. Esta ya es una integración entre los trajes y la nave. Habrán notado que Reid y Victor son los únicos que tienen paneles delante de ellos. Jeremy y Christina van a compartir una computadora personal que estará en la pierna de Jeremy. Así que ellos podrán observar la telemetría y la data de la misión. Tendrán una repetidora para esta computadora para que puedan ver lo mismo que ven el piloto y el comandante.
MS2 ready for comm checks.
The MS2 ready for comm checks. MS2 OTC Orion Earth 1 comm check.
OTC, it's MS2. Have you loud and clear on 1.
You're welcome, sir.
Esa fue la prueba, la conversación con Jeremy Hansen, especialista de misión, su confirmación de comunicación. Lo escucharon hablando Orión a tierra. Él ya completó su prueba de audio. El resto de la tripulación aún esperando en el cuarto blanco, como decía Nicole. No hay mucho espacio a bordo para todos. Cristina y Víctor van a esperar hasta que Reid y Jeremy completen su instalación dentro de la nave. 4 astronautas y 4 técnicos es demasiada gente. Allí pueden ver a los técnicos trabajando con Reid. Él está arrodillado en el puesto de Cristina para poder acomodar a Jeremy.
OTC asked. Commander's ready for comm checks.
OTC copies. Commander.
NTD, Mexico 212 comm check. NTD, have you loud and clear here as well. HFTS on 194, thank you.
Commander, OTC Orion Earth 1.
OTC, CDR has you loud and clear.
Good comm. Welcome, sir.
And there you have it, a successful comm check with Commander Reid Wiseman. And so...
And CDR, NTD on Orion Earth 1 for comm check.
¿Listos para completar las pruebas de comunicación?
And good to have you on board.
Un placer tenerlos a bordo.
Good luck today.
Buena suerte.
And so now,
y
these two
ya estos 2 miembros de la tripulación van a completar el equipo técnico. Explícanos, Nicole, qué está ocurriendo. Están conectando los umbilicales. Están colocándole su arnés de seguridad, el cinturón de seguridad, los cordones umbilicales, que son 4 conexiones individuales. Aire, agua para refrigeración y los equipos de comunicación. Tienen que asegurar que todas las conexiones están bien, que la tripulación recibe comunicación, aire, que todos los cordones umbilicales están conectados y funcionando normalmente. Y luego van a proceder a ayudar a Víctor y Cristina.
All right, welcome back into the firing room 1 here, where some of the launch team is having some pizza that was brought by the administrator. That was nice of Administrator Jared Isaacman to bring that by for the launch team to enjoy. We're L-minus 3 hours and 44 minutes and counting as you can see the crew ingressing into the spacecraft. There are a number of things that are happening on the timeline. Of course, the closeout crew, they liken themselves to like an F1 pit crew, working quickly, methodically, carefully, as they go through their procedures to get the astronauts ingressed. Overall, there's a little bit of timeline pressure, right? There's only a certain amount of time, as you see the astronauts going into Orion, only a certain amount of time that they can spend on their backs. They will be there for a few hours, right? So we're sitting at 2:40 p.m. Eastern time, and the window opens at 6:24 p.m. Eastern time and runs until 8:24 p.m. Eastern time. So 4 or 5 hours or more on their backs, and then they'll hopefully lift off for a launch. So, of course, the crew is mindful at the time. They don't want to slip into the window if they don't have to. And so they're keeping a tight lock on the margin, the amount of time that they're working there. And there's a heart from Christina Cook. Great to see that as she gets ready to get into the Orion spacecraft, one that they named Integrity. It certainly fits this crew from what I've observed. Now, right now, the rocket's tanks, they're in what's called replenish mode. So another factor for this closeout crew is, and the crew themselves, this is a fully tanked, almost ready to go rocket. It's got all the propellant it needs to go to the moon. It's just a matter of getting the astronauts in, getting them configured, and getting all the systems, the high energy systems, bringing them all online in order to launch this rocket. As they sit there, there is propellant boil off that's happening. All tanks are at 100%, but the propellant, which is liquid oxygen and liquid hydrogen, those two propellants are minus 423 for hydrogen and minus 297 for the liquid oxygen. They are boiling right now. They've been boiling the entire time and they've been in the tank. And that is vented out, as you can see. When we look to a wider shot of the rocket, you can see the venting and the little wisp of clouds that are coming out from the top of the rocket in the middle part of the rocket. And that is because just like you boil water on your stove, those propellants are boiling. Of course, their boiling point is much lower than water, and so it doesn't take much for them to boil. But just as if you were to leave your pot of water on the stove and just leave it there, what would happen? Well, it would completely boil off, and all the water would be gone. Basically turned into water vapor inside your house. Well, it's the same case here. So we are continually replenishing the rocket with propellant, liquid hydrogen and oxygen, running from those propellant lines that you see there going into the rocket. So that continues to go well. Overall look from the launch team here, this has been a very smooth countdown so far. The cryo tanking went exceptionally well, and the launch team is really in a good mood right now. Cautiously optimistic, understanding that with a system this complex, you can have something unexpected happen. But to this point, the firing room is really encouraged by what they've seen so far, and are especially excited to see these astronauts getting inside the spacecraft. L-minus 3 hours and 40 minutes and counting until we open up that window for launch. For now, we'll send it back to Megan and Nicole.
Thank you, Daryl. And, he mentioned that the crew decided to name Orion Integrity, and it was not something they came to easily. They really wanted to put in a lot of thought, and what they came down to is integrity is a value that NASA embodies, and also individually they felt like integrity is something that speaks powerfully to them.
Yeah, and I think the other part of integrity, it just represents the humility and the professionalism behind the entire team that built this rocket and got us here today. And so it's a fitting name for this capsule.
Yeah, like I said, I think the crew said it took them a little bit to decide on what they wanted, but I think they made the perfect choice.
I agree.
And so as the countdown to launch continues, we are reminded that this is an agency-wide effort to make today's launch attempt possible. We invited people across our NASA family to wish our crew a safe journey.
Go Team Artemis! Go Team Artemis!
3, 2, 1, blast off!
Have a great flight. Godspeed. We'll get you around the moon and home.
If I had a message for the crew, be safe, to have fun, to remember that we're all down here rooting for them.
I want to wish my friend and former student, Victor Glover, and the entire Artemis team best wishes and a successful flight.
Have fun. Take some really cool pictures. Can't wait to see you when you get back.
From the Earth to Sky team connecting NASA science to public lands, go Artemis.
We will see you in the Pacific, and you can count on us being there.
Greetings from NASA Langley's historic gantry facility,
where Neil learned to land on the moon and Orion learned how to swim.
We are with you all the way to splashdown.
Let's go fly from the Orion Human Engineering team. Woo! Like a full moon, your future is bright. Have a safe journey from the multimedia team in Cleveland, Ohio.
We hope to see you guys back safely in San Diego, maybe singing some karaoke.
Yeah, right, maybe. He knows exactly what he wants to do. He's like, yep, karaoke. I love that people submitted videos. You know, this is something that we actually asked as part of the broadcast. We were like, you know what, I think it'll be really fun. And the overwhelming amount of people who wanted to record something for the crew was really heartwarming.
Yeah, you know, this is the first time in over half a century that we're sending people back to the moon, and everybody is excited about it. You know, kindergarten to congressmen and all over the world, everyone is ready for today and excited to see this launch.
And so here we are again, still inside Orion with the closeout team, putting some final touches on, it looks like Victor's configuration there. Again, making sure that his harness is set and that he's connected to cooling, he's connected to communications, and he's connected to any other umbilicals that he needs to be connected to for Orion. Again, we are sharing so much information with you, and we hope you find it educational and fun. But we do know you guys still have some questions, so why don't we take another one now?
Tell us what the moon is like!
So cute. That wasn't a question. That was a demand. Nicole, you tell her what the moon is like.
Oh, man, that was so cute. Oh, man, the moon is really cool, right? So it's a lot of like gray and white and kind of shades of gray. It is something that doesn't have wind or rain or rivers or an atmosphere. And so we like to say Christina said it earlier, it's the witness plate to the universe. And, you know, it has all these impact craters because it's not protected. Things hit it all the time. Meteoroids, asteroids, all sorts of things hit the moon and create these impact craters. That's part of what we want to go and look at and learn about on the moon. It can tell us a lot about the age of the universe and the age of the moon. You know, it's 4.5 billion years old, and we can learn a lot from just looking at the regolith or the dirt that is on the moon.
Well, thank you for that question, and thank you for that answer. She was cuter, Nicole.
I agree.
And then earlier today, we wanted to ask you, what do you want to know about living in Orion? And we told you to pick between what the crew eats, how they sleep, how they fly the vehicle, and how free time is spent. And the winner, most of you wanted to know how to fly the vehicle. And we are going to be doing that.
Yes, we are. You know, that's a great question, and actually part of what we're going to go do. So the rocket is fairly automated, right? There's a countdown, and the whole system knows when it needs to ignite the engines. But we are going to do some manual piloting throughout this mission. Once they launch and they separate from the ICPS, they're actually going to do a rendezvous and proximity operations demonstration. So what does that mean? They're going to take that portion of the rocket and they're going to try to fly closely to it. And so they will actually take manual control of the Orion spacecraft and try to get nice and close to the other portion of the rocket that had just separated. And so you can see actually a little bit in the view that you have right now. So for Reid, the left-hand person, his right hand, there's a kind of a joystick, if you will, on the right side. And then on the left side, there's something similar. And so they've got, you know, translational and rotational hand controllers in order to command the rocket in different axes.
Yeah, it's really exciting. I mean, Victor said it himself, like one thing that he's really looking forward to is piloting Orion manually. So we'll get to see that during our continuous coverage. Again, we are covering this entire mission. We started with tanking, and we will go all the way through splashdown, so you will see what Nicole was just talking about, that proximity ops demonstration, where the crew will pilot Orion manually. And so, speaking of their 10-day mission, why don't we take a closer look at the crew's home away from home for the next 10 days. Here's Megan Carter again from the KSC Visitor Complex.
All right, thanks, Megan. Yeah, it's getting real out there, so I am going to bring you back to the moon board so I can show you just a few things about the Orion.
Vamos a conocer algunos detalles más acerca de la nave Orión. Obviamente, ellos estarán allí, la cápsula en el tope del cohete. Hay millones de componentes en esto. Comencemos hablando de estas tres cubiertas. Una vez que el cohete haya despegado, tenemos estos paneles de cobertura.
To protect the astronauts should something happen to go wrong in the first few minutes of launch. They can actually hit those abort motors, and these can activate within milliseconds, basically faster than you can even blink.
Esta unidad en el tope del cohete es la que sirve para casos de emergencia. Si hubiera una situación de peligro, se activaría y esto desprendería la cápsula del resto del cohete. Unos 3 minutos y medio después del lanzamiento, se van a abrir a través de componentes pirotécnicos estos paneles y el equipo de aborto de misión. Hemos hablado acerca de la cápsula, que es este componente acá. Aquí es donde la tripulación estará a lo largo del vuelo. Vamos a hablar más de eso en breve, pero pasemos ahora a este otro elemento, el módulo de servicio. Esto es el cerebro del cohete. Aquí tienen todo lo que va a necesitar la tripulación para la misión. Control de temperatura, filtro de dióxido de carbono, oxígeno, todo lo más, incluso algunas correcciones de curso. Muy rápidamente, como pueden ver aquí, todos estos componentes en conjunto hacen de esta nave una que se construyó no solo para viajar, sino para darle sistemas de supervivencia a los astronautas y traerlos de vuelta a casa. Mucha información útil acá. Queríamos destacar que ustedes estaban escuchando al mismo tiempo. Nuevamente, aquí estamos escuchando audio de la comunicación entre la nave Orión y el control de misión. Una prueba exitosa de comunicación de Víctor, de Cristina.
Yes, sir. Configure ARS to shoot mode per EPROC 10.1.1. Crew ingress and vehicle pre-launch config. Step 1.
10.1.1 crew ingress and vehicle pre-launch config. Step 1. Going in work now.
And so see, now we are privy to some of the countdown procedures that the team is asking for the crew to do.
Yeah, so they're going to work through some of these procedures and finish the ingress portion, as you heard in that procedure. So this is where the crew is going to start building their nest, if you will, running some procedures, getting the capsule ready for humans to be on board.
And now look at the clock, 3 hours, 30 minutes and counting until the opening of our 2-hour launch window, and we are pretty good on time. We are as we are expecting in terms of when ingress will be wrapping up soon. And so now let's bring Gary Jordan, again, our commentator inside of Mission Control at Houston. Gary, let's check in with you about mission preparations.
Hey, Megan, thank you. Yes, we're following along here in Mission Control Houston.
OTC copies.
And we'll stand by for those comm checks. And again, we're waiting for those comm checks. We did confirm from our IVA officer here in Mission Control Houston that all 4 suits have plugged in umbilicals.
And CDR, NTD.
Go ahead, NTD.
Yeah, Reid, we're ready to proceed with the voice checks if you and everyone else is.
NTD, integrity crew is ready for voice checks.
I copy that. And integrity for the entire crew, ComCheck on Orion to Earth 1.
CDR. PLT.
MS1.
MS2.
Good ComCheck by all. NTD moving to Orion to Earth 2.
CDR. PLT.
MS1.
MS2.
Integrity Houston on Orion to Earth 1. Voice check for the entire crew.
CDR. PLT.
MS1.
MS2.
Houston has all 4 crew loud and clear on OE1. Stand by for 2.
Your initial word was broken.
MS1.
MS2.
4 crew loud and clear on OE2. We'll use 1 for the default. Houston out. And CDR entity?
CDR.
Yeah, we're going to go ahead and we're going to clear a couple of those messages on your screen here. Just want to give you a heads up that you'll see that.
Copy all.
CDR, OTC, Orion to Earth 1.
CDR.
Yes, sir. Perform crew suit leak checks per 10.1.1. Crew ingress and vehicle pre-launch config steps 2 through 4. Annunciation of LCC O-ARS-001 will occur.
10.1.1 crew ingress and vehicle pre-launch config steps 2 through 4. Going in work now.
This is Mission Control Houston. We are following along as the 4 crew members of Artemis II work through their voice checks, then the umbilical connections and various pathways to get communications from all of the...
refresh on your screen.
CDR.
Yes, sir. We're going to look to do a quick refresh on your screen if you guys are okay with that.
Hey, firm, just let us know when we can continue in 10.1.1. We'll go hands off.
.1.1 referring to the procedures that they have through the various phases of ingress and some of the checkouts needed to prepare for today's launch. Here in Mission Control Houston, the IVA or intravehicular activity officer will be confirming the leak check status and watching as the suits pressurize to once again confirm that the suits are in a good configuration ahead of launch. Of course, for the teams here in Houston, launch is just the beginning. The first flight day is jam-packed with activities. Shortly after main engine cutoff, Integrity will enter into a coast phase while still attached to the interim cryogenic propulsion stage, or ICPS, and prepare to deploy the solar arrays. With power being generated, Integrity prepares...
Go ahead, MTD.
With that refresh, and you got to go to proceed with your 10.1.1.
Picking up 10.1.1, step 2.3 through 4.
picking up the procedures. The crew again working through the various steps to prepare for launch, standing by for suit. This is Mission Control Houston with visors closed. The pressurization tests can commence. We'll stand by for word of a good leak check on all 4 of the crew member suits for the Artemis II mission. Again, this is the very beginning of a very busy flight day for our 4 crew members. After launch, they have a series of burns to prepare for. The first major burn being the perigee raise maneuver that allows them to continue in low Earth orbit, and the next being the apogee raise burn that puts them in a high Earth orbit. This is an orbit that takes them around the Earth for nearly a day, 23.5 hours to be precise, and allows the teams, including the astronauts and the flight control teams, to check out critical systems ahead of committing to the next day's translunar injection. But before they even call it a day, Integrity will separate from the ICPS, and the crew will command the Orion capsule to separate from the ICPS and turn around and approach the upper stage, but not dock. This is to test Orion's in-space maneuvering capabilities and provide further confidence in docking to another lunar space vehicle like the Human Landing System that will be part of the Artemis III mission ahead of future moon landings. These are just a few of the highlights of the very first of 10 flight days as we await for confirmation of good leak checks inside the capsule Integrity. And there's a lot more to this mission. A reminder that this is, of course, a test flight. The purpose here is to demonstrate procedures, systems, and life inside Orion on a mission around the moon for the first time, and give further confidence in the capabilities that are charting a return to the lunar surface. You may be able to see from this view the suits themselves inflating. This is, again, a pressure check, verifying that the suits are leak-free ahead of the ascent portion of today's flight. How you see the crew now with visors down will be the configuration of their ascent all the way through core stage separation, about a little more than 8 minutes after booster ignition. All right, here in Mission Control Houston, we are continuing to follow along, standing by for confirmation of good leak checks. In the meantime, there are no showstoppers here in Mission Control Houston. We continue to monitor the countdown to launch. Megan, we'll send it back to you over at the Space Coast.
Hey, Gary, thank you so much. Yeah, as we wait for confirmation of a successful leak check for all 4 astronauts, why don't we go back to Daryl, again, who has been following along with the launch countdown as we inch closer to the opening of our 2-hour launch window.
All right, thank you, Megan. And yes, getting some good communication. It's great to hear from the crew inside, even though it is as simple as a comm check. It's really good to hear their voices as they move through those various comm checks and then get ready for their suit leak checks. Fantastic views inside Orion that you're looking at now. Give you an update on the weather outside. We're still 80% go for our 2-hour launch window, which starts at 6:24 p.m. Eastern Time and closes at 8:24 p.m. Eastern Time. That's the good news. The bad news is that we've got some rain showers that are starting to head in. Looks like it may miss the pad. Wouldn't matter if it rained on it or not, though. It's received some rain earlier today. Water isn't going to hurt anything out there at this point. But the rest of the area might be getting a little bit wet, which may include the hostess, so keep an eye out for that. As we're watching with the astronauts inside the Orion Integrity spacecraft, you'll be hearing more and more from them, especially Christina Cook, who is mission specialist number 1. She not only is going to be making history.
All crew, visors open, suit loop leak check complete.
OTC.
Okay, there you heard the suit leak check complete. They check those suits for leaks in astronaut crew quarters. They check them again inside the spacecraft. As you can see, the closeout crew, our astronaut support person moving around, turned off the camera, and so now we're looking from outside the Orion spacecraft looking towards, oh no, let's see. Get oriented here. Well, there we go. Back inside, we've got the view. But basically what I was saying about Christina Cook is that she will have the role of reading.
CM is ready for closeout, performing video sweep using drag-on camera.
OT.
She will have the role of reading out a pressure reading that tells the team that...
and CDR or NTD?
Go ahead, NTD.
Yeah, we're going to do another cleanup on those suit leak check messages that we got from, since we're done with that now.
Integrity copies.
Yeah.
And that's communication going between Orion Commander Reid Wiseman and NASA Test Director Jeff Spaulding. But as I was saying, Christina Cook will be reading measurements from the counterbalance assist arm. So you're going to hear her be asked by the NASA Test Director to read that. That CBA, counterbalance assist arm, it's mechanically latched by the closeout crew using tools, but there's a hydraulic assist. It's pneumatically opened and closed, rather, with a pressure assist that helps open it up. Not only that hatch, but also the last hatch. There's 2 hatches there that we'll see that will be closed. But this is in case of an emergency out there at the pad. If the crew, for some reason, needed to exit quickly, then they would exit the spacecraft by pulling that lever, which would open both hatches. Those hatches are heavy. The Orion hatch is hundreds of pounds.
HHP cameras 1 and 2 both set to record.
OTC copies.
And just an update on the launch countdown, continuing to monitor the team's communications here in Firing Room 1. Everything going really smoothly so far. We don't have any significant open constraints to launch at this time, so we continue counting down. And for now, we'll send it back to the hostess with Megan and Nicole.
Thank you so much, Daryl. And so we heard some of the communications over Orion to Earth 1, and it sounds like we are now moving into the hatch prep and closure phase. We will now start to see the closeout crew getting out of Orion soon so that they can start getting ready to, again, close up Orion, close the 2 hatches and then get out of the pad.
Yeah, the closeout team will take the hatch seals off and they'll inspect the seals, make sure everything's ready to go, and then do a few last-minute configurations before they close that hatch. And then, like Daryl talked about, then Christina will have a role in looking at the CBA there. So.
Yeah, you might have heard them say over the loops again that drag-on camera. So basically, it's a camera that they can move around, and you might have seen it in a couple of our shots already. But they will take that camera and literally go and inspect the seal. There's 2 seals actually, 2 seals that go around the entire area of the hatch.
Ustedes habrán escuchado
just
una
to make
referencia
sure
a la
that
cámara
everything looks
Dragón.
good,
La
and
cámara
that camera
Dragón
feed
es
is
una cámara
being
móvil
directly
que
shown to
permite
NASA teams who need to monitor that.
inspeccionar la escotilla, asegurar que no haya ningún objeto foráneo en la empacadura de la puerta. Harán una verificación además para que no haya fugas en el momento de presurización. Algunos de los miembros de la tripulación estaban trabajando para comenzar a presurizar los sellos de la escotilla para determinar si pueden mantener la presión por 1 minuto. Y si es así, procederán a presurizar la cápsula de Orión. Y nuevamente, el punto es asegurarse que la nave puede soportar la presión. Es un proceso que va a tomar unos 8 minutos, la presurización, depresurización, y quieren medir las diferencias de presión al comienzo y al final para que cuando la nave esté en el vacío del espacio se mantenga la presurización. Continuamos siguiendo las operaciones en la plataforma en la nave Orión. ¿Qué les parece si vamos a uno de los puntos de observación donde tendrán una vista espectacular? Y allí nos acompaña Leah Martin, quien está conversando con miembros del público y mucha gente que está en las gradas. Sí, hay mucha gente aquí, miles de personas que se han reunido aquí en Banana Creek para disfrutar de esta misión, este gran salto para la humanidad. Estoy aquí con algunas personas que probablemente sean las únicas que me superan en emoción aquí. Han venido para ver el lanzamiento. ¿De dónde son y qué los trae por aquí? Somos de la Universidad de Tennessee en Knoxville. Somos 7 estudiantes de ingeniería aeroespacial. Hemos venido con el ex mariscal de campo de la Universidad de Tennessee y la Fundación Dobbs. Y me contabas hace poco que eres local, eres de Orlando. ¿Qué tal estar aquí, ser estudiante de ingeniería aeroespacial y tener la oportunidad de venir a ver el comienzo de esta misión? Es absolutamente fantástico. Me siento como que esa chica de 9 años dentro de mí está llena de emoción. Yo soy de aquí, yo crecí viendo lanzamientos y es un momento muy especial para mí. Eres estudiante de ingeniería aeroespacial. ¿Qué tal estar aquí? ¿Cómo te sientes de ver este trabajo? Es excepcional ver lo que ha pasado. Yo he estado viendo todo esto y estar aquí y tener la oportunidad de verlo es algo que no hubiera soñado cuando era un niño. Y tú tienes una historia con NASA, hiciste una pasantía aquí. ¿Cómo fue eso y qué tal eso con tu pasión por esta oportunidad que tienes? Yo he estado aquí trabajando con la misión Artemis. Ha sido una gran oportunidad para aprender del programa. Así que el estar aquí para Artemis II. La primera vez fue en mitad de temporada, así que es increíble estar aquí para Artemis II. Y mi fundación tiene como meta ayudar a que la gente tenga estas oportunidades y brindarle oportunidades para el futuro de la industria y darle oportunidad a otros de ver el duro trabajo que va detrás de la exploración espacial. Es un honor estar aquí. Le agradecemos a todo el personal de ingeniería, todo el trabajo que nos ha traído hasta este punto. Y creo que ustedes realmente se han ganado este privilegio. Quizá podemos darle un buen augurio a Artemis. Es fantástico ver a toda la gente que ha venido acá. Horas antes del lanzamiento, de la ventana de lanzamiento. Gente realmente que quería venir para ver esto personalmente. Banana Creek ya está repleto. Pueden escuchar que hay mucha emoción en el aire. Sí, nosotros tenemos muy buenos micrófonos aquí, pero obviamente ella tenía que gritar debido a la multitud. Mucha emoción, mucha alegría y todos estamos listos para ver pronto el lanzamiento. Como saben, Victor, Reid, Christina y Jeremy van a tener mucho trabajo que hacer en la misión. Para los objetivos de este vuelo, hablemos con Megan Carter. Como veíamos de estas cámaras, la cápsula es muy compacta. Voy a mostrarles algunas cosas interesantes sobre la cápsula. La cápsula tiene 16,8 pies de diámetro y 10,5 de altura. Es más o menos el espacio de 2 furgonetas. Obviamente, cada área de la cápsula ha sido planificada con un fin concreto. Y algo especial son los asientos que vimos antes en las cámaras. Estos asientos van a estar allí para el lanzamiento, el regreso y el aterrizaje, pero podrán hacerse a un lado para las operaciones cotidianas durante la misión. Obviamente, la tripulación tendrá mucho que hacer. Parte de la tarea será un vuelo manual de Orión, pero también tienen otros objetivos que van a cumplir. Van a verificar múltiples sistemas, el módulo de servicio, confirmar que todo esté funcionando bien y, como decía, tendrán la oportunidad de hacer vuelo manual. Esto fue en una de las sesiones en el simulador. Pueden ver las pantallas que tienen, los controles manuales, las pantallas interactivas. Mucho en lo que han practicado y que van a hacer. A bordo también tendrán la capacidad de probar las comidas diseñadas para consumo en microgravedad. Una de esas comidas es de macarrones con queso y carne. También van a tener tiempo de ver algunas cosas como los sistemas de propulsión y energía. Tienen 3 sistemas clave que van a alimentar a la nave Orión. Y hablando de esto, quisiera volver al módulo de servicio rápidamente porque quería destacar estos 4 paneles solares. Esto va a tomar 18 minutos en desplegarse, 62 pies de extremo a extremo. Y esto es lo que va a brindar energía eléctrica a la nave y le dará a la tripulación lo que necesitan para el viaje. Como pueden ver, fue una nave diseñada específicamente para estas necesidades y para llevarlos y traerlos de manera segura. A miles de personas le ha tomado muchos años llegar a este punto. Hablemos con algunos de estos personajes de Artemis. Yo soy la directora de lanzamiento. Soy el gerente de supervivencia. Soy la oficial de entrenamiento. Soy el encargado de integración, directora de recuperación. Yo soy el director de reingreso. Nuestro trabajo es diseñar los trajes de la tripulación. Nuestro equipo aquí y el equipo de supervivencia, aquí se hace todo lo que tiene que ver con el procesamiento de los trajes, el diseño, calificación, pruebas para la misión Orión. Nuestro trabajo de entrenamiento es la planificación y el desarrollo de cómo vamos a entrenar a los astronautas, los simuladores, las operaciones en simuladores y cómo se va a ejecutar el plan. Recuperación se encarga de 3 cosas. Es la recuperación normal, cuando vamos a recoger a la tripulación en el punto de amarizaje. Si hubiera que hacer un rescate inesperado, nuestro equipo nos llevará hasta la cápsula si estuviera fuera de trayectoria. Nuestro trabajo es manejar la arquitectura de operaciones del sistema de lanzamiento espacial. Específicamente, nosotros apoyamos las operaciones de lanzamiento. Significa mucho el ser parte de este equipo, el poder mostrarle a la próxima generación qué es lo que hemos hecho. Yo soy responsable de procesamiento aquí en Kennedy. Mi equipo es el responsable de esta etapa y nos aseguramos de velar por la protección de esta unidad para poder llevar a los astronautas al espacio. Yo he sido director de vuelo por casi 10 años, estuve en la misión Artemis I y después de la misión fui asignado a Artemis II. Estoy ansioso por ver cuando se abre la escotilla después del amarizaje, cuando hayamos completado la misión y nuestra tripulación ya ha completado su viaje. Yo soy responsable de transportar a los astronautas hasta la torre de lanzamiento. Nuestro equipo conecta los cordones umbilicales, prepara el lanzamiento y cierra las escotillas. La razón por la que hacemos esto es para ampliar el conocimiento de la humanidad. Si podemos ser parte de eso, me encanta. La directora del lanzamiento es la que coordina todos esos elementos, cómo están las comunicaciones, procedimientos y demás. Es algo que va a inspirar a toda una generación, va a abrir horizonte para la ciencia y nos va a dar una senda para ir a lugares donde nunca habíamos estado. Y pueden visitar el enlace que verán en sus pantallas más adelante para conocer a más de la gente que ha estado trabajando con toda dedicación para traernos hasta este punto. Profesionales que han trabajado muy duro en esta misión. Y ¿vieron? Teníamos una entrevista, nos hablaban de dónde estamos en este momento. Hemos podido ver dentro del cuarto blanco cuando están preparándose para cerrar una de dos escotillas. Tenemos la escotilla del módulo de tripulación y del módulo de soporte. Aquí ven, están apretándose, están muy ocupados en el cuarto blanco para cerrar estas escotillas. Una excelente vista. Están haciendo esa inspección de la que les hablábamos antes. Los vemos como se apretan para cerrar esa escotilla interna. Respondamos algunas preguntas. Mucho ha cambiado desde el proyecto Apolo. Mi pregunta es, ¿qué viene ahora? ¿Qué vamos a explorar con Artemis? ¿Y qué tiene que considerar la NASA para planificar una misión como esta? ¿Esperaban a Scarlett Johansson? Sorpresa. Bueno, todos tienen interés en esta misión. La humanidad está volviendo a la Luna y me encanta. ¿Qué parte de la Luna vamos a explorar? Queremos visitar las regiones polares, especialmente el polo sur de la Luna. Pensamos que allí puede haber agua que se pueda aprovechar como recurso para una base permanente en la Luna, eventualmente seguir a Marte. Pero es una misión que tiene sus retos. Hemos avanzado mucho más. Así que hemos hecho operaciones de reabastecimiento de la estación espacial, por ejemplo, pero mientras más lejos estamos de la Tierra, hay que pensar en los retos logísticos de transporte de suministros y demás, y la atención de problemas únicos que se pueden ir presentando. Y hay mucho que aprender acerca de la Luna, así que no sorprende que sí, si bien nuestra meta es tener una base en el polo sur de la Luna, este no es el foco primordial de este sobrevuelo. La tripulación se va a concentrar en observar el lado oscuro de la Luna. Aquí verán una animación de lo que el equipo espera apreciar en esta misión, si se da el lanzamiento en el día de hoy. Nuevamente, cuando se haga el sobrevuelo en el día 6, esperamos que tengan una vista más o menos como esta. Será una vista excepcional. Y hay mucho que aprender de esta misión en particular. No vamos a tener un alunizaje acá, pero es posible que vean el polo sur y observen directamente las posibles regiones de alunizaje, y también van a poder observar partes de la superficie lunar que nunca han sido vistas por seres humanos. Hemos entrenado especialmente a la tripulación para trabajo de observación, para determinar cómo seleccionar las áreas que queremos estudiar. ¿Cuál es el contexto? ¿Qué elementos lucen diferentes o interesantes? Cráteres de impacto. Así que queremos tomar fotografías, registrar observaciones, recibir tanta información como sea posible para los investigadores en tierra. Y sí hablábamos acerca de lo que esperan hacer en esta misión de 10 días, pero también hay que pensar en todo el entrenamiento que está detrás de esto. Aquí hay 4 tripulantes que van a contar con el apoyo de todo el equipo. Tendrán comunicaciones, obviamente. pero van a estar muy cerca de la Luna, así que tienen que estar preparados para poder cumplir con su cometido en esta misión. Sí, y este sobrevuelo específicamente habrá diferencias de iluminación. Si el lanzamiento es hoy o mañana, la trayectoria puede ser diferente, así que tienen que conocer la geografía de la Luna para que puedan orientarse. Cuando estén en la parte oscura de la Luna no tendrán comunicación, tendrán periodos de interrupción de comunicación. Así que ellos mismos tienen que saber cómo orientarse y cómo van a obtener la información que necesitamos. Una misión muy ambiciosa y me encanta ser parte del comienzo. 2 horas 57 minutos para la apertura de la ventana de lanzamiento para Artemis II, este vuelo crucial, 250 años después del nacimiento de Estados Unidos como nación. Al celebrar este hito, una interpretación especial de nuestro himno nacional a cargo de Ann Wilson.
So proudly we held at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we walked were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
A beautiful rendition. Honestly, I'm a little emotional, a little speechless.
Yeah, that was gorgeous.
Yeah. I mean, again, we are a nation of explorers, a nation of curious minds, and to see us again 250 years after our Declaration of Independence was signed to when we are trying to return to the moon for the first time in more than 50 years, really powerful.
Yeah, leading the way back to the moon. It's exciting.
Mm-hmm. And that's so important to us. You know, we do want to be the leaders in exploration, but we definitely know we can't do that alone. You know, we often hear NASA leadership say that, you know, this is not something one nation can do. This is something that is a collaboration of nations, and that's why we have European countries. We also have Canada, again, joining us on this ambitious test flight.
Yeah, of course, you know, it goes back to the old proverb, if you want to go fast, you go alone. If you want to go far, you go together. And we want to go far. We want to get onto Mars eventually, and so we're going to get to the moon first, and you can't do that alone.
So thank you again, singer Ann Wilson, for that beautiful rendition, again reminding us of what it is we are trying to accomplish for all, by all. We are now back inside the White Room with the closeout crew. Again, backup astronaut.
Hola, ¿qué tal? Carlos Robles, jefe de meteorología de Noticias Telemundo, por aquí en el Centro Espacial Kennedy, el conteo regresivo para la misión Artemis II, para que finalmente la NASA esta tarde lance el cohete SLS hacia la Luna. Este conteo continúa y, como se diría en inglés, so far so good. todo luce miel sobre hojuelas en términos de este lanzamiento. ¿El por qué? El proceso de llenar los tanques de combustible del cohete SLS ha transcurrido con normalidad. No han identificado algún escape de combustible durante las pasadas horas y esto ha sido uno de los mayores problemas que ha estado encarando la NASA en previos intentos de lanzamiento. Combustible que obviamente se fuga de los tanques del cohete y que obviamente es muy peligroso llevar a cabo un lanzamiento si existe fuga de combustible. Por el momento el tiempo luce pues un tanto complicado, pudiera decir, en el sentido de que algunas nubes de lluvias y tormentas se han estado acercando. No obstante, a las 6:24 de la tarde, cuando abre la ventana de oportunidad, se entiende, las simulaciones meteorológicas nos muestran que la situación debería estar bastante clara en este sector. La brisa sí es fuerte, pero no alcanza las 33 millas por hora, que es el criterio para que la NASA no lance el cohete si el viento es así de fuerte. Está rondando entre las 16 a las 20 millas por hora, así que aún es aceptable. Temprano en la mañana de hoy, la NASA comunicaba que a las 9:24 de la mañana los astronautas se levantaron, tuvieron su buen desayuno y que inclusive conversaban con sus familiares. Ya cercano a las horas del mediodía se estaban acercando a lo que es el Centro Espacial Kennedy y se espera que durante las primeras horas de la tarde ya hagan lo que se le conoce como el conocido walk out, que es el momento que ellos salen de este lugar y se dirigen hacia lo que es la plataforma 39B, el lugar donde se encuentra el stack, realmente donde se encuentra el cohete SLS, el vehículo espacial que los llevará finalmente a orbitar la Luna en una misión de 10 días. Así que realmente eso es lo que ha estado ocurriendo aquí. Como dijimos previamente, la situación luce muy bien. La NASA ha estado informando que todo transcurre en orden y que al parecer pudiéramos tener lanzamiento del cohete SLS y de la cápsula Orión, donde irán estos 4 astronautas esta misma tarde. Usted se preguntará, ¿cuál es la importancia de esta misión y por qué luego de 50 años regresamos a la Luna? Bueno, la NASA está en medio de una carrera espacial por intentar llegar lo más rápido posible a la Luna nuevamente, pero en esta ocasión no tan solo a orbitarla, sino a permanecer en ella. Estamos hablando que ya para el 2028 la NASA prevé llevar a cabo la misión Artemis IV justo después de Artemis III. Artemis III tiene previsto salir el próximo año, orbitar la Tierra, probar nuevamente los sistemas de lo que es la cápsula Orión y también sus sistemas de lanzamiento para eventualmente en Artemis IV hacer un lanzamiento llevando astronautas y que estos puedan alunizar en el satélite de la Tierra y así de esta manera permanecer allí de forma permanente, en lo que se le conoce de igual forma como lo que es el hemisferio sur de la Luna. Así las cosas, es una misión realmente histórica. Los astronautas, por lo menos en esta ocasión, estarán recorriendo más de 280,000 millas de distancia de lo que es la Tierra hacia la otra cara de la Luna, lo que se le conoce como el lado oculto de la Luna, donde los ojos de ningún humano han podido ver, y estos 4 astronautas van a poder lograrlo. Así las cosas, es la expectativa que se tiene. Aquí el ambiente obviamente es de emoción, pero también así es de alta expectativa de lo que pudiera estar ocurriendo esta tarde y obviamente nos llena de mucho orgullo poder estar aquí. Es un honor estar aquí en este momento tan histórico. Esa es mi intervención de todo lo que acontece desde el Centro Espacial Kennedy en Cabo Cañaveral, la Florida.
Have a nice trip. Go Artemis. Thanks so much, Megan.
I would say have a nice trip.
Yeah. You would say have a nice trip.
I did hear that answer. I would say have a nice trip. You know, Leah, that was a hard question. You know, it's really hard to come up with the spot what to say to the crew who's about to make history today.
Yeah.
And so the Artemis II crew, again, ZGI, zero gravity indicator. It's a plushie, a soft toy that is brought in to the spacecraft with astronauts so that it can be a visual indicator for when we have reached the weightlessness of space, right?
Yeah, you saw a little replica there that Lucas had, and then in some of the views in the cabin view, you could see it swinging and hanging earlier. So I think actually Jenny was the one who installed it into the capsule.
Oh, really?
Yesterday, yeah. So
we have to unpack a lot here. We got to talk about Jenny, who we will get to here in a second. But then, yes, we will also go back into the capsule so that we can show you where the ZGI is now. But the ZGI was chosen by the crew after a contest where the crew asked for submissions. They got submissions from around the world to, again, design their ZGI that is going with them to the moon.
It's kind of like any other road trip. You need clothes, food, a map, your favorite toy. Really. Except this toy has a job to do up there because this is a zero-gravity indicator. While not a scientific instrument, this safe and soft object tells the strapped-in astronauts that they've reached weightlessness. For Artemis II, the crew wanted a one-of-a-kind ZGI, so we asked you to come up with it.
Thanks everyone for sending in your entries from around the world. Over 2,600 of you submitted.
And we loved seeing all of your contributions. It was a really difficult decision because each design had a unique quality that stood out to our crew.
In the end, we were able to narrow it down to a top 5 from Finland, Canada, Peru, and 2 from the United States, Kansas, and California.
In the end, we went with one called Rise. It was a design inspired by the Earthrise photo taken on Apollo 8, which is very special to our crew.
With the winner chosen, next came the task of bringing it to life here in the Thermal Blanket Lab at NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center. This lab specializes in custom materials to protect sensitive spacecraft equipment and is perfect for creating a ZGI that meets the rigorous safety standards of NASA.
Because you have to be concerned with whether the thread's going to outgas or if it will hold up, if it's flame retardant.
This is the Rise ZGI doll. All I have left to do is to close the opening here and hand sew the hat on, make sure its stuffing is stuffed in there. And we have our pocket here for the SD card.
And on that tiny SD card will be millions of names submitted to virtually join the crew aboard Orion.
Got Rise. Not the real one, obviously, but this is a replica. I mean, so clever for Lucas and his family to design.
Yeah, I love that he replicated the famous picture that we all love of Earthrise, and then I love that the bill represents the space in between the moon and Earth. It's just such a cute and wonderful way to represent this mission.
Yeah, and again, Earthrise, very important to this crew. It harkens back to the picture that was taken by the Apollo 8 crew where they saw Earthrise, and so very appropriate since, again, now here we are going to see Earthrise again with this mission.
Yep.
So yeah, so this is little Rise here. And then you heard in that video that there is an SD card that is zipped inside with the real ZGI with the crew. So get this, more than 5 million people submitted their names as part of NASA's Send Your Name to Space campaign. And actually, Christina said that her niece and nephew's names are inside that SD card.
How cool is that? Her nieces and nephews are going to go with her.
Yeah. Love this. Love that people are engaging in such a cool way. And actually, if we take a look back inside of Orion, we can actually see the actual ZGI inside with the crew. As we said, the purpose of a zero gravity indicator is to show when we've reached the weightlessness of space. Now, I know that it's probably dark in there because, as we said, the crew decided to just dim it a little bit for them. But here again, as we see Reid on your left, Victor on your right. Below Victor, or next to Victor, again, because they're on their back, it's a little weird. It's a little hard to explain their orientation. But between basically Victor and Christina is where Jenny Gibbons has placed the zero gravity indicator. And Jenny, who, again, Nicole just brought up, Jenny is one of the backup crew members. So we mentioned how Andre is the backup crew member for the NASA astronauts. Jenny is the backup crew member for Jeremy.
Yeah, Jenny's one of our Canadian astronauts, and yeah, so she's been also helping with preparations for today and helping get the white room ready, get the capsule ready, and she's actually going to be a Capcom for Artemis II as well.
Yeah, she's from Calgary, Alberta, completed astronaut training in 2020, mechanical engineer, combustion scientist, and actually before becoming an astronaut, she was an assistant professor. So again, another very well-accomplished person on the team. And I know the Artemis II crew has really enjoyed working alongside both Andre and Jenny.
Yeah, actually, Jenny was our EBQ mentor when I went through our ASCANner initial training, so she helped us with all of our spacewalk training, which was kind of cool as well.
Okay, and there we have Andre again, number 2, with the rest of the closeout crew team there. Why don't we get another check with Daryl and see how the launch countdown is going.
Still going quite smoothly here from Firing Room 1 here at the Kennedy Space Center. Launch team working no major constraints to launch, which is great news. We did get an update on a weather balloon that the launch weather officer and his team released. This is an important weather balloon released right around the 3-hour mark. And what it told us is that winds are around 10 to 11 knots in the upper parts of the atmosphere. That's important information for the launch abort system should the astronauts need the last. This would, of course, pull the Orion spacecraft off the top of the rocket in case there were an emergency, and then take them offshore to a water landing in the Atlantic Ocean. And so the winds are pushing onshore. And because they're pushing onshore, the launch weather officer is keeping a close eye on the strength of those winds, because if the Orion were to come off the top, and it's powered by 3 rocket motors, which can propel it or pull it especially fast off the top of the rocket, it would go up into the air thousands of feet and then splash down in the water. And if you've got wind pushing against it, you don't want that spacecraft to come back and land on land. So they're watching that very closely because of the onshore flow. That onshore flow is also what's giving us a little weather action down to the south of us along what's called the beach line, 528. We got a whole lot of people out there. We're getting ready to watch the Artemis II historic launch. Well, they just got a good soaking. Line of rain showers, I should say, passed through that area and soaked the place. Certainly rain is a possibility, spotty showers from time to time, but overall the launch weather officer tells us that we are trending towards getting that stuff to all push to the west the closer we get to our launch window. A reminder, that window is from 6:24 p.m. to 8:24 p.m. Eastern time. We don't have a specific T0 at this moment. There's a lot that needs to be calculated before we get there. We also need to get through the rest of the countdown on time. As of right now, we are right on time. The launch countdown is going exactly as planned. That's not something that we saw certainly in Artemis I. There was a lot of flexing in the timeline during those 3 launch attempts back in 2022. But so far today, on our first launch attempt, we're really enjoying some really solid countdown work, some solid operations by the launch team so far. And to quote our friend Lucas, who created Earthrise, we all really like that. We'll send it back to the host desk.
Thanks so much, Daryl. Yes, we really like that, and we really like
realmente
Lucas,
nos encanta.
So thank you for that. That was really cute.
Lucas.
Okay, so again, here we are.
Aquí estamos.
In the big box here, we have our.
Pueden ver en sus pantallas el cohete en la plataforma, una vista excelente con algunas nubes, pero las condiciones siguen propicias para el lanzamiento y podemos ver al equipo que sigue trabajando en el cuarto blanco para cerrar las escotillas. Nos confirmaron que ya lograron presurizar el módulo de balance de presurización. La escotilla lateral es muy pesada. Así que para abrirla se requiere presión y eso es lo que se ha completado. Lo que estamos viendo, este sistema tiene que presurizarse. Es un sistema neumático que ayuda a mover la puerta. Cristina sería la encargada de abrir esta escotilla si tuvieran que evacuar la cápsula. El sistema neumático ayuda a abrir la puerta. Una persona normal no podría abrir esta puerta por sí solo. Por eso el sistema se presuriza, se confirma que no haya ninguna fuga y esté todo listo por si tuvieran que abrir la escotilla. Eso ya se ha completado y lo que vemos ahora es que están verificando la empacadura de la siguiente compuerta. Tienen que verificar la integridad de toda esta empacadura. Se van a presurizar estos anillos para confirmar que mantienen la presión. Queremos que la tripulación tenga una presurización segura durante la operación de la nave Orión. En breve comenzarán a presurizar. Serán mediciones al comienzo, al final. Hay ciertos márgenes de tolerancia aceptables previos al vuelo. 2 horas 37 minutos y continúa la cuenta para la apertura de la ventana de lanzamiento a las 6:34 de la tarde. Tomará menos de 10 minutos para la nave llegar a una órbita terrestre. Regresamos con Gary en el control de misión. Hola, Megan. Estamos aquí en Houston. Los controladores están revisando la información de integridad en el sistema de lanzamiento. Durante la cuenta regresiva, estamos verificando la secuencia de operaciones para que se cumplan todos los criterios para el lanzamiento. El equipo que ven aquí será el que se encargará del control en ascenso, una fase muy dinámica del vuelo. Después de la ignición de los cohetes de combustible sólido, van a escuchar los diferentes comandos, intercambio de información con el equipo de comunicación con la cápsula, llamado Capcom. Ellos serán los que tengan el contacto con la tripulación de Artemis. El canal es el llamado Orión a Tierra. Stan Love está allí. Él va a confirmar cuando comience la rotación de la nave. Esta maniobra se hace en órbita baja. A 1 minuto 25 segundos escucharán Max Q. Max Q significa punto de máxima presión dinámica en la nave espacial. Esto tiene que ver con el cambio de comunicación y la transición a la estación Ponce de León, 35 millas al norte del centro Kennedy. A 2 minutos 45 escucharán SMS Prime. Esto significa que el módulo de servicio europeo, el sistema de propulsión, que entrará en función en la siguiente etapa, está listo para ser activado y se van a abrir los canales criogénicos y estén todos listos. 3 minutos 50 escucharán la verificación en la línea Carmen. En este punto se va a abrir la cubierta del módulo de servicio. Esto va a dejar expuestas las antenas de la nave Orión para la red de rastreo, la red satelital de rastreo, parte de la red geosincrónica, y es el mismo sistema que usa la estación espacial. Esta comunicación ocurre en la línea Carmen, esa frontera de 100 kilómetros sobre la superficie de la Tierra, donde el aire es demasiado delgado para operar una nave convencional y se considera que allí es donde los astronautas dejan la atmósfera terrestre. Luego escucharán el llamado de verificación de que a partir de allí 3 motores serían suficientes para continuar con la misión. Esto es importante y es una garantía de que se puede continuar con la misión. A los 7 minutos tendrán un llamado a nominal shutdown. Esto lo que significa en ese momento es que se van a apagar los motores. Esto tiene que ver con las fuerzas que experimente la tripulación y funciones maniobras. Esto indica que la misión continúa en secuencia. A los 7:30 escucharán cuando la nave entra a un nuevo perfil para un eventual aborto de la misión. Altura y velocidad son suficientes para darle una vuelta a la Tierra y aprestarse para un aterrizaje en el Pacífico en lugar del Atlántico. Después de 8 minutos escucharán nominal MICO. No será inmediato. Van a esperar a que se hayan separado del módulo y darán esta instrucción a la tripulación. Esto todo es aproximado porque puede haber algunos cambios, algunos segundos, dependiendo de trayectoria. Y por supuesto que lo que les contábamos es el proceso nominal. La tripulación se ha entrenado para este proceso y el equipo en tierra está preparado. Hoy, Jet Free, director de vuelo, ha expresado su confianza al equipo, hablando de los cientos de simulacros realizados en preparación para este momento. Esto es lo que van a estar escuchando durante el ascenso en menos de 3 horas. Y vamos a hablar de la cuenta para el lanzamiento. Regresamos a la costa espacial. Gracias, Gary. Uno de nuestros astronautas de hoy, Jeremy Hansen, de la Agencia Espacial de Canadá. Estamos aquí en el Centro de Control de Operaciones en Kennedy. Ya hay una multitud y Lisa Campbell, de la Agencia Espacial de Canadá, está con nosotros. Jeremy Hansen está por hacer historia como el primer canadiense que hace un viaje hasta la Luna. ¿Qué significa eso para ustedes? Gracias, Jasmine. Es maravilloso estar aquí. Es un momento muy especial para nuestro colega Jeremy Hansen y para Canadá. Estamos aquí por décadas de inversión pública en exploración robótica del espacio, colaboración espacial. Nuestro país está lleno de orgullo. Él está preparado, ha esperado por esto toda su vida, preparándose y entrenándose, y es un maravilloso ejemplo de Canadá. Y es una forma perfecta de definirlo. Él se ha preparado para esto toda su vida. Este será su primer viaje al espacio. ¿Cómo te sientes de verlo como parte de esta tripulación? Yo lo conozco desde 2020. Es un coronel, piloto de combate, padre, y es un ser humano sumamente dedicado. Así que es excelente que pueda hacer realidad este sueño de ser un astronauta. Él también espera que esto despierte interés en el programa espacial y los beneficios para la Tierra, la exploración del universo y nuestro lugar en el mismo. Hermoso. Esta colaboración internacional lleva mucho tiempo. Hemos trabajado en órbita baja, ahora vamos al espacio profundo. ¿Por qué es tan importante tener estas alianzas? Nos hacen más fuertes. Podemos avanzar más y más lejos. Canadá es uno de los signatarios de Artemis desde hace mucho tiempo, y Estados Unidos y Canadá tienen más de 50 años de cooperación espacial. Esto es un trabajo de equipo. Jenny Gibbons estará allí. La doctora Jenny Gibbons se ha estado entrenando como respaldo canadiense con la tripulación principal. Anoche estuvo en la cápsula Orión verificando las comunicaciones, probando los sistemas, y ella estará entre los primeros oficiales de comunicación en el sobrevuelo de la Luna. ¿Algún último mensaje para Canadá? Estamos muy orgullosos y emocionados y queremos tener a Jeremy de vuelta en casa. Muchas gracias por acompañarnos. Y regresemos a la NASA.
Thank you, ma'am.
Again, a call out to mission specialist Christina Cook. Again, it was her responsibility to monitor the pressure on the counterbalance system that will help open the side hatch. And she did report a drop in pressure, but it seems like it's within nominal limits.
Right. They might have had a small drop, but we have a starting pressure and an ending pressure, and as long as the difference isn't too high, then we will take that. And the engineers know exactly what they're looking for in terms of that delta pressure.
And so again, that milestone on the checklist of things that have to happen before they launch today, that is complete. The crew, again, still inside comfortably as the closeout crew team work to close the side hatch. Again, a separate seal leak check, followed by a full cabin leak check, and then they will close the last abort system hatch.
Lots to do still in the White Room and marching down the countdown timeline well.
And so Bill, again, number 3 there, he is holding a silver flex hose. That hose is what will be connected to Orion in order to do that cabin leak check. So again, it does seem like we continue to march down through the milestones in this countdown. Hopefully lifting off today within our 2-hour launch window that opens at 6:24 p.m. Now, right now, people inside the Kennedy Space Center Visitors Complex are learning about this mission. There are great exhibits there about the rocket and Orion, and of course, our Megan Carter with the Moonboard.
All right, Megan and Nicole, yeah, you mentioned that checklist before launch. That checklist is going to continue during the mission as well, as there are several vital objectives that we are hoping to accomplish with this mission. So we've talked about the rocket. We've talked a little bit about Orion. Obviously, during Artemis I, we had that test flight, and there were no humans on board. That is our one big difference for this one, and we are going to have that crew this time. So what are they going to be up to during this mission? Let me tell you just a little bit. Now, for Artemis I, like I mentioned, we were really focused on the SLS, making sure it had the power and capabilities that we needed. We were also checking out the Orion spacecraft in deep space environments, making sure that it was good to go. Now for Artemis II, we are going to be taking the testing for Orion to the next level by adding that human component. So those test objectives are going to start even before launch. Like you mentioned, they are out there making their way through that checklist. But these objectives are going to start now, and that includes safety. So one really great example of safety is going to be something called the egress baskets. They're out there in the spacecraft, obviously, and should a situation happen to come up, they are going to have something called the egress baskets they can get in, and those are going to zip line them essentially down to the ground within seconds to safety. Another great example of those safety procedures are going to be the LAS, or the launch abort system that I mentioned earlier. Just a reminder, that's the one that can pull the crew and capsule away from any danger within a few minutes of into the launch. Now, those are just a couple quick examples, but our recovery teams have been training extensively, quite a lot, to make sure that they are ready and prepared for any challenging situation that could possibly arise. All right. Several other objectives that we are going to be looking at are also going to be communication checkouts. That is going to be vital. I know we talked a little bit earlier about all the maneuvering that they're going to be able to do, but we want to make sure that they have full communication ability from space to ground so that we can fully support them here. We are also going to be checking out those life support systems. Obviously, we've talked a lot about the service module and what it is going to do for the crew, but we want to make sure that those life support systems are fully functioning, obviously, before we send them farther into deep space. That's going to be critical for them. So on top of being able to maneuver the spacecraft and check everything out, we are also going to be making sure that everything is fully functioning. So as you can see, big part of this mission is to make sure that the spacecraft, the hardware, and all the operations are working, and that the data is going to make sense. And speaking of recovery, we are also going to have the opportunity at splashdown to recover that launch or that flight data, and we're going to be able to take that back, analyze it, and make sure there are if there are any enhancements we need or changes we need to make before our next missions, we'll be able to do so. So lots to do. They're going to stay very busy, obviously. And with that, I will turn it back over to you, Megan.
2 hours, 25 minutes and counting, and the crowd, check it out, continues to grow at our Banana Creek viewing location. They will have a great view of launch, and we will go back now to Leah Martin, who's standing with her next guests.
Hey, Megan. Yeah, we're surrounded by thousands of people, some here local from the Space Coast, but we actually have quite a few people who have traveled a pretty far distance to be with us today. I'm actually joined here by a group from the International Space Station Ambassadors Program who have come from all over the globe. Saku, you're here from Japan. You've come, Val, from Mexico, and then we have brother and sister Cosma and Jesco here who are visiting from Germany. You actually told me that you participated in an in the NASA Rover Challenge in Huntsville. How was that experience, and how is it kind of participating there in Alabama and then being here today?
So it is an amazing experience because you meet so many young people with visions, with dreams, with ideas, which inspire you and motivate you. And it's even better to be here now to see the SLS launch because we are going back to the moon, and that's what we're working for.
Absolutely. And, you know, the Artemis missions, we talked a lot about the Artemis Accords and this being an international effort. You were actually telling me, Saku, that you're interested in becoming an astronaut with JAXA, pursuing your PhD to be able to do that. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yes, actually, I applied for the Japanese Aerospace Agency, the astronaut selection like 2 years ago, and then I didn't make it all the way, but I'm still working on it, and hopefully I can be at the launch pad sometime, and then I hope to go back to the moon and Mars, and yeah, I'm working on it.
Absolutely incredible. And Val, you're from Mexico. We were talking a little bit about women in space. This is a team who, you know, is predominantly made up of women. What is it like knowing that Christina is on that rocket right now, about to be the first woman to travel around the moon?
I think that's such an amazing news. It's just so inspiring that we are taking the first Black person and also the first woman to the moon. It's just the first step in humanity and a big step in equality as well.
Megan, a lot of excitement here, not just in Florida, but from around the globe, and we're keeping our eye on that rocket, and we're ready to see it lift off.
Thanks, Leah. Yeah, a lot of excitement, but also a lot of inspiration. Again, this is part of, or a big part of the reason why.
130.6.
Good readback. Aux 1 voltage 131.3.
I copy 131.3.
Again, those numbers you hear, they're referring to specific steps in the launch countdown that the crew have to step through in order to get us to launch today. And so we were saying, yes, inspiration, a big part of why NASA does what it does. We want to go together and we want to explore together to learn more about ourselves and here on Earth.
Yeah, humans, I think, naturally want to explore, and so going together, like Lisa said earlier, we're going to go farther and faster than we possibly can alone. And, you know, what a way to celebrate that today.
Yeah.
Going back to the moon in the first time in over half a century.
And we have that great shot there in our small box of the rocket on the pad. And at the very top there, our Artemis II crew. Right now, we know that the crew has begun, the closeout crew has begun doing that cabin leak check. So they are currently pressurizing the cabin, and it sounded like it would take about 6 to 8 minutes for them to get to pressure, and then they have to hold that pressure for 5 minutes, right?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, so there's quite a bit of volume. You know, we talked about it being a 6-person tent. I think it's 330 cubic feet. Don't quote me on that number, but you know, they have to, like we talked about, take that initial pressure, wait 5 minutes, and take the second pressure.
Yeah, and then it takes about 6 to 8 minutes again to depressurize the cabin. So this process will take a few minutes.
OTC ascent switch configuration complete.
OTC copies. Thank you.
And then after the cabin leak checks, then they will finally close the last abort system hatch. So again, chugging along in the countdown, really excited to, again, continue to hear the crew's voice inside Orion, stepping through all the procedures.
Yes, it's exciting to hear them making progress, right? It's all good news hearing the crew talk to the ground and working together to get to the launch.
And what I think is really cool is that this is the first time NASA is going to have astronauts in low Earth orbit, but also in deep space at the moon. So here's a message from some of the crew aboard the International Space Station right now.
Hello, Megan, and a big hello to everyone around the world counting down together to the launch of this historic flight test. If we weren't in microgravity, we would also be on the edge of our seats.
Here on the International Space Station, all of us are honored to have the chance to wish our fellow explorers Godspeed. Throughout human history, the moon has sparked our imagination, curiosity, and wonder. With our return to the moon, we're not only going to be learning about its history, the history of our solar system and of our planet, but also about our place in the cosmos.
We are so proud of the Artemis team and so excited for what you will see and learn on behalf of all of humanity during your trip around the moon. As we push the boundaries of exploration and expand our knowledge with scientific discovery, we advance our collective civilization together as one.
Test flights are crucial to the mission of exploration. We all learn in test flight schools that the more challenging the missions are, the more incremental the tests should be. This Artemis II mission is one more increment on the way to further exploration.
Thank you to the crew, our friends, for your dedication. And from the entire Expedition 74 crew, thank you to all of the teams that had a hand in getting the Artemis II mission to where it is today.
Back to you, Megan, as the countdown continues.
Oh, I love that so much. I just love seeing them there. And again, you have to remember the International Space Station is an orbiting lab. We learn so much there, and we're going to learn so much more from Artemis II, because this isn't just a test flight. It's an opportunity to learn more about the moon, deep space, and how humans can live and work so far from home. So here are some of the science objectives that NASA hopes to accomplish with Artemis II.
Artemis II is our return of humans to the moon, flying around the moon on board Orion. But along with that, we're doing a lot of great science.
One of the exciting things about the Artemis missions to the moon is that science is actually a fundamental pillar of why we explore, why we're going, what we're doing in Artemis.
I think it's incredibly exciting that not only are we testing the vehicle, but we're testing science on board. Science where the astronauts are conducting experiments, science riding along with the astronauts. We have astronauts looking outside the window and really observing the lunar surface.
It will help us understand the deep space environment. It will help us understand how that environment affects our astronauts, our systems, and life in general.
So deep space is a challenge for us because you have to leave Earth's protective magnetic field. Here in low Earth orbit, the crew members are protected from some of the harmful radiation. Going to the moon, they'll no longer be protected, so they'll have a higher radiation exposure.
Much like Artemis I, we have so many radiation sensors and detectors that are inside the capsule so that we can fully understand and appreciate the radiation environment for protecting our astronauts. In my hand here, I'm holding a tissue chip model. This is the exact design that's going to be flying alongside the astronauts. We'll be collecting samples from each of the crew members, and we can make these organ chips out of the astronauts themselves. So every crew member will have their own avatar on board, and then upon return, we can evaluate that deep space radiation environment and what that compares to the astronaut themselves. Not only are they going to help change the course of medicine for the astronauts, but revolutionizing that on Earth as well.
We're looking at sleep, we're looking at team dynamics, we're looking at how you interact with the environment. We're also looking at the immune system, so what are the biomarkers? We're using saliva as a method to study hormones and different things in your body that may change during a mission like this. And then finally, how do we function after microgravity, being close to the moon, then returning to Earth?
Which will ultimately help us achieve our goal of getting humans to Mars.
And then on top of that, we have an opportunity to look at the moon from deep space on the far side for the first time in over 50 years.
Having human eyeballs and brains back around the moon is going to unlock a new generation of lunar science discovery. The human eyeball is capable of taking in so much data in just a split second. They'll be able to tackle impact history, volcanic history. They'll be able to look at how the albedo, or kind of the shade and hue of the moon and the color of the moon, can tell us something about how that terrain evolved over time. We're integrating science in ways that have never been integrated into human exploration before. We have a front room mission control flight controller position called the Science Officer. We have a brand new science back room where it's basically our brain trust of lunar scientists and geologists supporting the crews of the future. And Artemis II will allow us to really test how this works so that future missions are really set up for success.
We'll also be deploying some CubeSats. They're small shoebox-sized spacecraft of their own. They're each provided by another country, one of our partners. As they conduct their research, they'll complement what we are doing at the moon with Orion.
It is so incredibly exciting to be a part of this mission.
And it has been, really one of the privileges of a lifetime.
I can see the work I'm doing benefit crew members right now and benefit the crew members in the future. So it's incredibly exciting and it's very rewarding.
As this rocket launches humanity off of the Earth, we'll be setting the stage through our science to prepare humanity to leave Earth and explore the solar system.
And what we learned during this and future Artemis missions to the moon will eventually get us to Mars. Here's Jasmine Hopkins again, now with Nikki Fox, Associate Administrator of NASA's Science Mission Directorate.
Thanks so much, Megan. Yes, we're back on the balcony now, joined by Dr. Nikki Fox. Nikki, in this nearly 10-day mission, we are covering a lot of science from CubeSats to tissue chips. What are you most looking forward to learning?
Oh my goodness. I think for me, the most exciting thing is actually being able to interact with the crew while they are flying, doing this historic journey on the far side of the moon. They are going to be seeing pieces of the moon that no human eyes have seen before, which is really spectacular. It's going to be an interesting trajectory. Some of it is in darkness. Then at the Terminator, so in darkness, they'll be able to look for like impact flashes and things when micrometeorites pummel that poor moon. And then at the Terminator, they can see shadows and interesting things, which kind of gives you depth perception. And then, of course, in the sunlit, picking out everyone's favorite craters. Also, if we launch today or tomorrow, they will see a total solar eclipse from the Orion capsule. How cool is that?
That is very cool. We are thrilled for this Artemis II crew to be able to see the moon in a way that we've never seen before. What is so unique about that far side? Why are we going there?
I mean, honestly, it's just, it is unique. It's very different to the near side of the moon. The actual sort of terrain, the morphology, it's very, very different. And so it will be very exciting to see that as we're going past that.
Absolutely. And Nikki, you know, we are performing a lot of science at the moon this year, actually, not just Artemis II. Can you speak to the commercial lunar landers we're planning to send?
Yes, we are very, very proud of our commercial partners as they take our payloads for us to the lunar surface. And very excited. Next one up is Blue Origin's Blue Moon Mark 1 going. It's got some science on it. It's got the scalps that went on the Blue Ghost. So we'll be able to sort of look at that plume as it's coming down onto the lunar surface, and then also the laser retroreflector that will be the array that's up there too. So even on that first test flight, packing it with science as much as we can.
Wow, Nikki, so much science. It's hard to keep track of everything. But the unique thing about Artemis II is we're sending crew. Can you speak to the importance of the human element of science?
Absolutely. I mean, we can program, like we do with our beautiful rovers on Mars, we can program them to do certain things, and it's what we think we need them to do. When you have an astronaut up there, they can make that sort of like really unique split-second decision. The thing I'm most looking forward to is when they think they're going to be looking here, is hearing one of them say, "Oh my goodness, look over there." And I think that's just incredible about how we do that. Also flying our tissue chips with the astronauts, our Avatar experiment. Here we go, Avatar.
Wow, look at that.
And that's got the tissue chips samples that matched to the crew. Mm-hmm. So we'll be able to monitor the effects of microgravity and radiation on that human tissue as we prepare for more and more missions to the moon for longer and longer durations, right, and then off to Mars.
Wow, Nikki, so much science ahead of us. But first, we have to launch. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much. Go Artemis.
Of course, go Artemis. And with that, let's turn it back over to the countdown with NASA's Megan Cruz.
Nikki is so fun. She has so much energy and so much
Es
passion
mucha
about
energía y
science.
mucha
And
pasión
again, yeah, it's just
sobre
so
la
important
ciencia
to
y sí,
remember that so
es
much
muy
science
importante
is happening
recordar todo el trabajo científico detrás de esta misión. No solo se trata de probar equipo y sistemas de apoyo. Como observamos, hemos hablado de las observaciones lunares que se van a hacer. Ella hablaba de la importancia del ojo humano, que puede detectar cosas que no necesariamente registra una cámara o un robot. Pero no es solo la observación lunar. El experimento de los llamados avatars, se han tomado muestras de tejido de la tripulación y se han colocado en estos elementos, estas pequeñas piezas. Los bloquecitos estos permitirán estudiar el efecto de radiación. Vamos a tener también los CubeSats, estudios sobre el espacio, estudios genéticos. Así que hay mucho que hacer en muy poco tiempo en una cápsula pequeña. La idea es descubrimiento científico. Por eso volvemos a la Luna. Y su energía, estoy sin palabras, pero será algo fabuloso. Nuevamente, gracias, doctora Nikki Fox, Jasmine. Y vamos a responder a otras preguntas. Vamos a una de esas preguntas.
I know we got 'em.
Sé que están por ahí.
I see 'em being asked.
Sé que nos están haciendo preguntas.
OTC or Earth 1.
Go.
For your awareness, scrubber cycling is about to be restarted.
Integrity copies.
All right, let's try that again. Can we get the next social question, please?
Siguiente pregunta en redes sociales. Tratemos de una vez más. ¿Cuáles son las fuerzas G que experimentarán los astronautas de Artemis durante el lanzamiento y reingreso? Es muy similar a un lanzamiento de la nave Dragón o del transbordador. Tenemos que acelerar lo suficiente para salir de la gravedad terrestre en el encendido secundario. Personalmente, es como que te disparen con una onda. ¿Te sientes que te estás comprimiendo contra tu asiento?
Go ahead.
Moon leak check complete. The cabin is going to be vented to flight pressure momentarily.
Integrity copies.
That's fantastic news. Again,
Buena noticia. Una vez más, la nave está manteniendo la presión tal como se esperaba. Ahora van a depresurizarla. Esto va a tomar de 6 a 8 minutos. Continúa. Sí, hablamos de las fuerzas G. Sientes esta presión en el pecho. Esto se va acrecentando paulatinamente hasta cuatro veces y media la fuerza de gravedad. Y luego hay una desaceleración para que estas fuerzas no aumenten demasiado, especialmente en el punto llamado Max Q o de máxima presión dinámica. Y es algo similar en el proceso de regreso. Un aumento paulatino en las fuerzas G cuando la nave está desacelerando. Imagínate, estar viajando a 7 millas por segundo. Así que tiene que haber una desaceleración paulatina. Si uno siente esto cuando frena en un vehículo, piensen en lo que es para los astronautas dependiendo de su orientación. Gracias, Nicole. Y vamos a seguir tratando de responder a tantas preguntas como sea posible. Y ahora tenemos otra pregunta de nuestra audiencia. ¿Qué parte de la misión Artemis II es la que más te gusta? ¿El lanzamiento, la vista de la Tierra o el sobrevuelo de la Luna? Cuéntenos y compartiremos sus respuestas más adelante. Difícil, no sé qué respondería yo. Todo me llama la atención. Vamos a regresar a Banana Creek. La gente que está allí, gente que ha venido de todas partes del país y del mundo para observar el lanzamiento.
Talking to some students from around the globe. Today we're actually talking to some local students who are from right here locally Merritt Island in Titusville. We talk a lot about the Artemis generation and about the students who are going to become the next generation of dreamers, of engineers, of scientists and technologists. And I'm actually standing with a group of those students here today. Our local high school has actually implemented a really neat new program in the spirit of being able to create these pipelines for employment and engagement. Can you tell me a little bit about what Merritt Island High School is doing?
Sure. Well, this is a new program, first of its kind here at Florida. And basically what we're studying is astronautics and aviation, kind of blended the two together. We have flight simulators in our lab, but students are also learning about engineering, aerospace engineering, and we're trying to make all kinds of pathways available for them, trying to give them opportunities to see which pathway they might want to be interested in. So, yeah, it's just a great opportunity for them to learn about space. We just finished doing a whole model rocket build where the students took CAD software, developed their own rockets, put them together, and launched them right from our school. So it was very exciting.
Incredible. And then another local high school, Titusville, you guys also have a similar but slightly different program.
Yes, we do space mechatronics with advanced manufacturing, preparing students to build and manufacture things to automation to build things on Mars and things like that are locally too.
Now, you told me that you're actually trying to figure out a little bit what you want to do when you're done. You're a freshman in high school. What things are you learning in your class here that are really kind of tweaking your interest in the aeronautics field?
So we're building a lot of things with like metal and how we're supposed to do it on the rockets. We're also doing computer programming, which would help with NASA and like programming and coding.
Absolutely. And you were actually telling me that I think were telling me that you're interested in becoming a pilot. We talked a little bit about the pilot who is on board the rocket right now. How is this program preparing you for your future?
I mean, it's teaching me everything that I know about aviation, and it's really inspiring that I get to learn it in a classroom, like locally as well. It's amazing. I love it.
And then you were also telling me you're taking this class. What's the most interesting thing you've learned?
I really like the whole design part of it, like actually like engineering, like because I want to be an engineer. Engineering the products we use when we build stuff. That's definitely my favorite part, learning how to use those kind of softwares.
Absolutely. Well, Megan, when they're seasoned NASA employees, you'll be able to say that you saw them here first when they were still in high school. Back to you at the desk.
I can also say that they have fans. Nicole Ayers here. As soon as that girl said that she wants to be a pilot, Nicole went, yeah, why is that something that's so thrilling for you to hear?
I mean, I love when kids in high school have goals and they set their goals high and they want to go do something. You know, the kid who wanted to be an engineer or a pilot, like, I love that. You know, find something that you're passionate about, go work hard at it, and go get good at it.
Yeah, and speaking of passion, I mean, we definitely have a whole bunch of people here passionate about what NASA is doing here. Again, the lawn behind us just filled with media from around the world, making sure that they can help tell our story to everyone who is interested in hearing it. So back here in Florida, of course, we have NASA leadership also keeping a close eye on launch operations. Let's go now to Jasmine Hopkins, who is standing by with Lori Glaze, Acting Associate Administrator of NASA's Exploration Systems Development.
Thanks so much, Megan. Yeah, we're honored to welcome Dr. Lori Glaze to the balcony now. Lori, this is our very first time having crew on an Artemis mission. How does that feel, and how does that change our overall approach to the mission?
It's a really good question, and it really came home today when we were watching the crew walk out, and then we saw them get into their van and go out to the pad, and we've been watching them getting into the crew module. And so we've really put an enormous amount of rigor into assuring the safety of our crew. One of the most important things on this mission, different from Artemis I, is we now have environmental controls and life support systems. One of the most important things we're going to do on this mission is test those out and make sure that we can keep our crew healthy and safe throughout their mission. We also on this mission have an activated launch abort system, which we had the system for Artemis I, but it wasn't active. But we definitely had that active on this mission. We want the ability, again, if something goes wrong, to be able to have that ability to abort and get them back to the ground, again, safe.
Absolutely, Lori. I mean, as you're driving home, safety is paramount here at NASA, and your program is responsible for all of these Artemis elements. We have the Space Launch System, Orion, ground system. So how do you get everybody cohesively on the same page for a day like launch?
And that's a great question, and it's really been wonderful to watch our teams working together. We have the ground systems, which are kind of the bookends of our mission. The ground systems help prepare us to get the rocket ready to take off. They're doing all of the loading of the tanks right now and getting the crew into Orion. And then at the back end, they'll be there to recover the crew when they land in the ocean. But they know that their job is to make sure that that rocket is ready to go and that the crew module is ready to go. And then the rocket itself, the space launch systems, they know that their job is to deliver the crew module to the right point in space so that they can conduct their mission. And then again, they have to make sure that everything is ready, that they set them on the trajectory that is going to bring them around the moon and set them up to land in the right place in the Pacific Ocean. And that's their job, and they know how important that is. And they have to work closely with Orion, which again, they also have to work with all the other teams to make sure that everything's working together. And then on top of that, our flight operations teams, all the people on the ground, they're all working together. They know this mission doesn't work unless every single part of the mission works.
Right. Lori, there are so many things that have to work together today. We can't wait to see what happens next. Thank you so much for being here.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Of course. And with that, let's take it back to the countdown with NASA's Megan Cruz.
And speaking of the countdown, 1 hour, 59 minutes and counting until the opening of our 2-hour launch window at 6:24 p.m. Eastern Time. This is a shot of Jetty Park. It's a nearby popular viewing location of rocket launches, and it is so great to see how many people are here. I mean, this is a Wednesday. Like, people had to take time off of school and off of work, but it's something that they felt like they wanted to do, to be here.
Yeah, you know, I think just based on the chatter on the airplane ride yesterday, half of my airplane ride here was they were coming to see the launch. You know, everybody's excited and traveling from all over the world to come see this launch.
And it really is a great day. We had some sprinkles here in the crowd, but for the most part, I mean, it's just a beautiful day to witness history.
It is, yeah, you know, a little bit of sprinkles, but for the most part, the clouds are staying away, and you can see the blue sky behind us, so hoping for good weather in a couple hours.
Absolutely. And so Dr. Lori Glaze mentioned what we learned from the Artemis II mission helps pave the way to sustained human presence on the lunar surface. So what are the objectives of this mission to eventually accomplish that? Let's check in with Gary in Mission Control for more.
Thank you, Megan. Yes, the ascent teams are here in Mission Control Houston, working through their steps to prepare for a go for launch. Right up here on the front board, we're watching the teams in the White Room work through their checklist and closing the hatch as we verify ours, working as one NASA team. What Dr. Glaze said about working across the teams throughout the nation is true. It takes one NASA team to bring everything together and accomplish the mission objectives. The Artemis II is designed as the first crewed test flight of NASA's Artemis campaign, sending astronauts into lunar space to validate systems, operations, and human performance ahead of a more complex lunar landing missions. NASA has identified an extensive list of mission and flight test objectives that serve as a checklist to verify the capabilities needed to land humans on the moon. For the Artemis II mission, there are 5 overarching priorities that cover the mission and flight test objectives. First is, of course, the crew. As the first crewed mission inside the Orion spacecraft, this mission serves to demonstrate the capability of safely sustain the flight crew throughout the mission, including launch, the deep space component, and return. Number 2 is systems. This mission brings it all together to validate the performance of all ground and flight systems needed for a long-term lunar campaign, from launch infrastructure to spacecraft operations in deep space. Third is hardware and data. We'll be gathering performance data as much as possible over the Deep Space Network, but we also aim to retrieve onboard data and hardware after splashdown to gather additional insight and improve future Artemis missions. Fourth is emergency operations. The crew and flight control team will be testing emergency systems such as abort procedures, rescue operations, and contingency responses. During the flight, astronauts will rehearse a number of these procedures to ensure that in the event of a real emergency, the planned procedures and operations are sound. And finally, there's subsystem validation. Engineers will be verifying subsystems across the board to ensure reliability across life support, propulsion, avionics, and navigation systems aboard the Orion spacecraft. Human spaceflight is a complicated endeavor that requires precision and confidence across all disciplines. You may hear the phrase, human spaceflight is the greatest team sport, a few times in today's coverage, and it's absolutely true. Not only does it need mastery of specific components, but the integration extends across thousands of people and facilities around the world to come together and make it all work. A lot of the work from many people has led to this moment, a rocket at the pad with humans on board, ready to put everything we worked for to the test. I'm certainly excited about it. The teams here in this room are looking forward to supporting the mission, and I hope those watching are as excited as we are. We are following the countdown here in Mission Control Houston. Everything continues to look good, now inside 2 hours from the beginning of the launch window. With that, I will send it back over to you, Megan and Nicole.
Hey Gary, thank you so much. We are getting word that the launch team is working
Escuchamos que el equipo de lanzamiento está trabajando en algo. Queremos darles una actualización. Daryl. Gracias, Megan. Estamos en vivo desde la sala de control 1. Y sí, en este momento no hay ninguna limitación concerniente a los sistemas de tierra o el cohete, pero el equipo de lanzamiento le han informado de una situación que se está observando. Entendemos que esto tiene que ver con el sistema de terminación de vuelo. Para explicarles rápidamente, todos los cohetes tienen un sistema de este tipo. Es el sistema que se utiliza para enviar una señal de destrucción a un cohete en caso que se salga de trayectoria. Es un componente vital de seguridad para la seguridad pública. Se está trabajando en algo concerniente a este sistema y a medida que se continúa estudiando, han pedido asistencia del equipo de lanzamiento para verificar parte del trabajo que están haciendo en este sistema de aborto de misión. Es una situación singular. La idea acá es verificar qué está ocurriendo con el sistema. Quieren confirmar algunos parámetros. Para poder hacer esto, el operador de la consola del sistema de lanzamiento en la sala de control le han pedido que ayude a hacer la verificación. Y la forma de hacerlo, la solución que él propuso en este sentido, y la directora de vuelo aprobó su propuesta, es buscar equipo que se utilizó en el programa de transbordadores espaciales. Y este equipo puede recibir comandos del sistema de aborto de misión. Con esta pieza de equipo del operador de consola que trabaja y está a cargo de esta misión, le han dado permiso para proceder con la prueba. Va a ir a buscar este equipo que él conoce muy bien y que se utilizó en la era del transbordador espacial. Eso es lo que están haciendo en este momento. Lo fundamental aquí es que en este momento tenemos luz roja, pero eso no nos impide continuar con la cuenta. Así que vamos a seguir procesando la cuenta regresiva. El equipo de cierre de escotillas seguirá trabajando. Así que les mantendremos al tanto de qué sucede con relación a esta verificación. Es una situación singular, según entiendo. Estamos tratando de buscarle una solución para resolver esta situación. Eso es lo más reciente desde la sala de control. Volvemos con Megan y Nicole. Gracias, sí, es algo único, pero esto nos habla del ingenio del equipo, es decir, hey, tenemos tal o cual equipo, ¿por qué no lo utilizamos para tratar de resolver la situación? Es un gran ejemplo de creatividad. Sabemos que el equipo existe, vamos a resolver el problema. Tenemos tiempo, la cuenta regresiva prosigue, así que siguen adelante los preparativos. Tenemos una ventana de 2 horas para determinar qué ocurre con estas lecturas. Y hablando de esto, explícanos qué es el range. Sí, cada vez que se lanza un cohete, hay que despejar el espacio aéreo en el corredor de lanzamiento. ¿Por dónde va a viajar el cohete? Hay que asegurar que ese espacio esté completamente despejado. Y la Fuerza Especial ayuda con esto. Hay recursos allí. Pero queremos asegurarnos que no haya aviones o embarcaciones en este corredor. Así que hay un grupo muy importante que está trabajando en esto. Es todo un equipo integrado haciendo este trabajo, dándole seguimiento a ese corredor para mantenerlo despejado. Si hay cualquier situación, no se puede lanzar. No se puede lanzar un cohete si hay alguna obstrucción en el corredor de trayectoria. Esto es muy importante. Estamos hablando de un sistema que pudiera activarse en caso de una emergencia. Así que vamos a seguir atentos. La cuenta prosigue y esperamos que esto se pueda resolver utilizando este equipo que está en el edificio de ensamblaje. Muy bien, menos de 2 horas para que se abra la ventana de lanzamiento a las 6:24 de la tarde. La tripulación, como pueden ver, Están allí tranquilos a bordo de la cápsula, recibiendo información y preparándose para el lanzamiento en el día de hoy. Para mí, la luna es lo que me conecta con todos los seres humanos de mi vida. Recuerdo cuando era un niño y estaba acostado en la noche y veía la luna en cualquiera de sus fases y decía, caray, quizá mis amigos pueden ver la luna exactamente igual. Y cuando estaba en la armada y veía la luna, estaba al otro lado del planeta y decía, caray, mi hermano puede ver esa luna donde él está y está al otro lado del planeta. Para mí es una conexión con la vida en la Tierra que todos podemos ver y siempre está cambiando. La luna no es igual dos veces. Soy Reid Wiseman, soy el comandante de la misión Artemis II. Yo crecí en un pueblito cerca de Baltimore, Maryland. Hay una base de la Guardia Nacional cerca de mi casa y veía los A-10 que pasaban de tanto en tanto. Y yo decía, caray, me gustaría hacer eso. Y mi hermano fue a la Academia Naval y todos los años iba y veía a los Blue Angels durante la graduación y me fui entusiasmando cada vez más. Me uní a la Fuerza Aérea y descubrí que la Armada también tiene aviones. Y dije, para mí eso es lo que quiero hacer. Volar para mí es libertad, especialmente cuando uno está en un jet para despegar de un portaaviones en medio del Pacífico. La tierra más cercana está a 1500 millas. Cuando uno sale del portaaviones, realmente está solo ahí en esta experiencia mágica. Es un momento muy especial. Volar sobre el Pacífico es libertad. Creo que cualquiera que hace algo que se propone, no hay una cosa en particular, es una combinación de factores. La crianza que me dieron mis padres, cómo crecimos mi hermano y yo, nuestra relación, mis amigos, estar en la banda del colegio, estudiar en la universidad, aprender a vivir independientemente, tener mentores, mantenerme en la senda de éxito y tener la libertad de hacer desvíos y cometer errores. Todo esto se conjuga al final para llevarlo a uno a donde quiere ir. Yo soy un ser humano, he tenido que superar muchos temores. Yo le tengo miedo a la altura, pero tuve que superarlo en la Estación Espacial Internacional. Pero es como cuando uno está en un edificio, desde allá arriba, cuando uno mira, nunca sentí esa sensación de que me podía caer. Me encanta esa sensación de flotar en el espacio. Ha habido retos en toda mi vida. El mayor de los retos fue perder a mi esposa en 2020 debido al cáncer y criar a nuestras dos hijas. Son adultas ya, pero fue el mayor reto que he enfrentado en mi vida. No es fácil ser papá, tener un trabajo a tiempo completo y criar a dos hijas. Pienso en eso todos los días. Me siento muy orgulloso de mi trabajo. No siempre lo he hecho bien, pero siempre he hecho lo mejor posible. Yo me pregunto, ¿cómo va a ser cuando estemos lejos de la Tierra y podamos verla? Esta sensación de estar tan lejos de todo lo que uno conoce. Yo tuve esa sensación en la estación espacial cuando estuve en la cúpula por un buen rato. Y me imagino, ¿qué será cuando uno está a más de 200.000 millas de distancia? Soy Víctor Glover y soy el piloto de la misión Artemis II, alrededor de la Luna. En cuarto grado tenía 10 años. Y fue cuando ocurrió el accidente del Challenger y eso me ayudó a entender la sensación del público sobre los astronautas. Esta es la gente que queremos ser y eso me motivó a luchar por esto. El mayor temor que he tenido que superar en mi vida es el de la duda de uno mismo. Ir a la universidad, algo que no había hecho nadie en mi familia, fue un gran riesgo. Yo tenía más confianza en mi habilidad atlética que académica. Yo podía jugar fútbol con esos estudiantes que veía en televisión, pero mis compañeros que veía en la universidad, en el laboratorio, no sabía si yo era tan brillante como ellos. Encarar eso es parte de decir, bueno, voy a ser ingeniero. Me voy a graduar de ingeniero y voy a hacer algo que sea un reto técnico, como volar. Apolo llevó seres humanos a la Luna. Artemis tiene la oportunidad de continuar la historia de Apolo. Creo que es importante que esta historia tenga vida propia. Artemis es un programa nuevo y estamos tratando de hacer cosas nuevas. Y es excelente comparar y contrastar. Cuando ustedes ven a nuestra nave, hay elementos diseñados, construidos e integrados en otros países. Cuando ven nuestras tripulaciones internacional, hombres y mujeres, esa comparación y contraste hace la historia aún más rica. El papel del piloto específicamente, voy a tener hora y media para volar manualmente la nave. No hemos volado muchas naves espaciales, así que poder hacerlo en el espacio, en un vuelo de prueba, es una oportunidad única. No sé cómo voy a sentir sobrevolando la Luna cuando pueda ver la Luna desde 1/4 de millas de distancia, pero no voy a decir que es cuestión de emoción, porque voy a estar enfocado. Lo que hacemos es muy serio y riesgoso. Todos estamos familiarizados con ese riesgo. Así que si tenemos éxito y podemos pasarle la batuta a Artemis II, eso me emociona. Yo he contado una historia que me contó mi padre. Antes del proyecto Apolo, cuando él era un niño, estaba viendo la Luna con su mamá y ella le dijo: no te preocupes, Ronnie, nunca vamos a llegar allá. 70 años más tarde, su hija está yendo para allá. Y pienso en ese arco. Es algo que nos va a enseñar a todos. Esa idea de que lo imposible es posible si uno cree y está dispuesto a trabajar para lograrlo. Soy Cristina Cook y soy especialista de misión en la misión Artemis II de la NASA alrededor de la Luna. Cuando pienso en mis sueños cuando era niña, nunca pensé que llegaría a este punto. Era muy pragmática. Aunque soy una soñadora, sabía que las probabilidades estaban en mi contra. Así que dije, voy a hacer otras cosas que me gustan. Me encanta la ciencia y la matemática, me gustaba mucho en la escuela, me fue muy bien. Pero también siempre fui muy activa. Me encanta hacer cosas que me hacen sentir pequeña, ver el vasto cielo nocturno en medio de los árboles, o el océano. Carolina del Norte también tiene montañas y me encanta esta expansión, lo que siento y lo que pienso en medio del universo y cuánto más hay para aprender. Me gusta explorar, me gustan los retos físicos y mentales, y yo prefiero resolver problemas con equipo en ambientes hostiles, y esto es algo que ha sido parte de mí desde que era niña. Cuando pienso en estos retos que he tenido que superar, son tantos. Básicamente, ese ha sido el recorrido. Siempre le digo a la gente, haz lo que te asusta. Eso significa seguir mi propio consejo. Hacer lo que le asusta a uno es montarse en un avión e irse a la Antártida, ir a estudiar en la Universidad en Ghana, postularme para astronauta, abrir una escotilla y salir a la oscuridad del espacio, abordar un cohete. Para mí, eso es que no importa cuál sea el reto, uno reconoce que hay gente que cree en uno, y si uno sabe que creen en uno, los retos se hacen más fáciles. Para mí, la Luna representa historia. Todo lo que ha pasado en la Luna todavía está grabado allí. Cada persona que ha visto a la Luna. Todos vemos la misma Luna, es muy especial. Es el símbolo primordial que llevamos todos en el corazón, pero también representa exploración y alcance. Yo tengo este recuerdo muy especial, esta imagen de ver un astronauta en la Luna. Está grabado en mi mente porque lo vi tantas veces cuando era niño. Veía esa imagen y sabía que esto había tenido un gran impacto en mí. Seres humanos en la Luna. Soy el coronel Jeremy Hansen. Soy astronauta de la Agencia Espacial de Canadá y especialista de misión en la misión Artemis II alrededor de la Luna. Cuando estaba estudiando, crecí en una granja cerca de London, Ontario. Pasé mucho tiempo con mi padre en la finca. Aprendí el valor del trabajo. Si quería ir a trabajar con papá, sabía que iba a ser un día largo y no me podía quejar o no iba a volver al día siguiente. Yo tenía una casita en un árbol, tenía mucha imaginación y la convertí en una nave espacial con todos estos controles y botones, interruptores que había encontrado, y yo en mi imaginación estaba explorando el espacio. Lo más importante que hice fue aprender a volar aviones, caza y llegar a ser astronauta. Compartí esto con otra gente y uno no va a la Luna solo. Si no, lo hubiera hecho hace mucho tiempo, cuando era un niño. Uno tiene que ir como un equipo. Creo que el mayor impedimento para lograr esta meta es algo que está en uno. Es una experiencia humana colectiva. Cuando hay estos obstáculos, mi interpretación inmediata era, bueno, se acabó. Pero alguien tiene que haberme ayudado y de alguna manera esa persistencia salió a relucir. Y creo que eso es parte de la experiencia humana, el superar esas dudas. Yo he llegado a darme cuenta que todos tenemos algo que contribuir y la meta es determinar cómo usar esa energía para contribuir algo positivo a la humanidad y el planeta. Me encanta cuando hay estas grandes metas como enviar seres humanos a la Luna o a Marte, porque al hacer eso podemos reunir el ingenio no solo de un país, sino de todo el mundo. Y también he aprendido de mis mentores indígenas. Ellos hablan de la Luna como la abuela Luna. Tenemos a la Madre Tierra y la abuela Luna, porque la abuela Luna es la responsable por el agua en la comunidad. Así como la Luna afecta las mareas y mueve el agua en el planeta. Y me parece que es algo muy hermoso cuando regresamos a la Luna a pensar en todas las culturas del mundo y su interpretación de la Luna. Y es encantador porque todos compartimos la misma Luna en el cielo nocturno.
One hour, 38 minutes and counting until the opening of the Artemis II launch window today, 6:24 p.m. Eastern Time. And we are looking at the rocket and Orion out on the pad, historic launch pad 39B here at Kennedy Space Center. What a great view, Nicole.
Yes, it is. You know, we can see the clouds out in front of us, but they are to the west. And you can see that there's some blue sky peeking through behind that rocket, which is good news.
And more people continue to come on center here. About a couple of hours ago, folks with special passes to come on center were allowed to start driving on with family and friends. And of course, we have media growing by the moment here at the press site here at Kennedy Space Center, setting up their cameras, setting up tents, interviewing folks. Again, this great jib shot that we have from our camera here showing all the interest that we have here at the press site. And actually, even to from Seattle as well as Alabama, but we're glad that we can be able to share it with you in the broadcast now. And so why are we going to the moon? Why does NASA want to build a moon base there? Here's Megan Carter again with our moon board.
All right. Thank you, Megan. Yeah, so we are right around that hour-and-a-half mark, hopefully for that launch. It's going to be very exciting. So they are going to have a few days to be around the low Earth orbit, and then they'll be heading on to the moon. So yes, let's talk what will be happening. Why are we going to the moon? So obviously this is not going to be a landing, as we've discussed. They are going to be coming with 4,000 to 6,000 feet around the moon's surface, and this is going to connect us directly to our past. Those Apollo missions did have 6 lunar landings, and the Artemis campaign is looking to build on that past by going back to the moon, staying longer, and then going farther. So how are we going to do that, and why? We have obviously talked a little bit about that lunar South Pole, and we are focused specifically on the far side of the moon for this one for a specific reason. You might have guessed we're going to be looking for some resources, especially, and that's going to be water or water ice. That is going to be giving us some really critical pieces for future missions. And as you can see here, we have identified 9 potential landing zones. So this is going to be a critical objective for our crew. Depending on when they launch, it will determine what is going to be visible, but we do have these 9 landing zones right here around the Shackleton crater. And as you can see here, a lot of that area is deep and dark, and that is where we are going to be looking for that water ice, because that is obviously going to give us not just water to drink, but as we know, that can actually be converted into our propellant potentially, that hydrogen and oxygen. So that is going to make the moon a critical place for that moon base, because we want to think of it essentially as a backpacking trip. If you have your tent and your hiking boots and your camping stove and all your gear, you don't want to take that out and be on the trail for the first day and then try everything out. You're going to test things out a little bit closer to home before you go out on that adventure. And that kind of goes for us as well. So the moon is going to be critical for us in the future steps towards our lunar landings, and then also for going farther on to Mars in the future. It's going to set us up for that deep space exploration, and we can't wait to see what they see once they get to that flyby. But for now, we are, like I said, getting closer. So I'm going to turn it back over to you, Megan.
Exciting stuff. Again, the idea of accomplishing a moon base, like as we've been saying, sometimes things just seem like science fiction, and it's amazing that we're making it science fact.
Yes, yeah, we're going back. We're going to scout it out, and then on the future Artemis missions, we're going to put boots back on the moon for the first time in over half a century. But we're going to stay, and we're going to learn from the moon, and we're going to, as Megan talked about, the water ice, and harness that resource, and, not only learn from the moon about Earth and about the solar system, but also figure out how we get to Mars from the moon.
And so what we're seeing now back inside the White Room with the closeout team, they are removing basically fixtures that protected the crew module hatch while they did work around it, right, Nicole?
Yep. Yeah, so anytime that you're moving around and working, there are some sensitive sensors and parts of the crew module that we don't want to kick or bump into, and so it's easier to just put a guard up while you're working in there and then take it down later.
And so this is a visual cue for us that the team is getting ready to close the last hatch, again, the launch abort system hatch. Can you tell us about what the last is?
Yeah, so launch abort system, this is, we have the crew module, and then what sits out basically on top of the crew module is the launch abort system, and it has its own motors, so that we'll arm it about 5 minutes prior to launch, and then it stays with the crew module until about the Kármán line, so that 100-kilometer point in space. Once the crew could safely get to orbit, it will actually be jettisoned, and the crew module will then be exposed. So this is just a safety mechanism that stays on the outside of the crew module, and then as they monitor the attitude and the thrust and all sorts of the roll, all sorts of different data points to make sure the crew is safely getting to orbit. And once they are safely to orbit, then we will get rid of that launch abort system.
And it looks like they're putting all these parts that they're removing from around the crew module hatch into a bag, because they have to take this out with them once they leave the pad, right?
Yes, yeah, we don't want anything left up there in the White Room, and especially because that crew access arm will move away from the capsule and the rocket, and so we want an empty White Room, no FOD like we talked about, so that we can have a safe launch.
And this orange tube that you see on the right side of your screen, that had been inside the crew module providing breathable air to the crew. And now again, with the crew module closed and them getting ready to close the second hatch that has been removed and is out of the way. So again, the closeout crew can continue to do their work.
Yeah, that's just a duct to provide some cooling air and some breathing air to the crew and the closeout crew while they're in there.
That's actually a good point, yeah.
En la misión Artemis II.